and welcome to episode 99 of Random Encounter. And I have to realize now I have to redo this intro because I've been saying for the longest time the RPG Fan Podcast, but we have two other shows. So that really makes me out to be a dick that I keep saying, like, this is the only RPG Fan Podcast. So this is
RPG Fan Podcast.
Yeah, this is Random Encounter, an RPG Fan Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Steinman, Pale Robbie on the boards. Joining me today is the man who just spent the entire, 2 days moving everything out of your apartment?
That's me, Stephen Myrick, Tails on the boards. Also joining us is somebody who helped me do that.
That would be me, Caitlin Argyros, Lean Kazero on the boards, and man, am I tired.
Caitlin, you are a trooper. Like, anybody that helps a friend move is, like, the best people in the world.
You deserve a coffee. And a pat on the back.
And that voice right there is Derek Heemsbergen.
What's up? Embryon on the boards. I'm playing a lot of Mother 3 these days.
Mother 3? That's right, you're playing the English language translation, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We talked about that. Okay.
Yep.
We also have attorney at law, Jesse Wu.
Hi, Jesse Wu. I'm the Superdog on the boards, attorney at law, news dude.
Attorney at law.
We need is there a DVD collection of Harvey Birdman? There should be.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. I should get that. I really liked Harvey Birdman.
Should.
I love when
Birdman video game was pretty disappointing though. That bummed me out a little bit.
But when Fred Flintstone was like Tony Soprano, that was awesome.
That was pretty cool.
And then we also have Mike Solosi. It's like Bola Santosi from Just Cause 2. That's how I think about your last name every time I say it.
Sure. I'm Mike. I'm Monsoon on the boards. And, I tried playing Mother 3 several years ago, but for some reason, I would get a weird delay for all of the rhythm game attacking stuff on my emulator.
Oh, it is a little off, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so it felt like I was doing it wrong every time, and that bummed me out too much.
Maybe you were doing it wrong, scrub.
Right?
Well, that's
good.
a shame.
I have anxiety.
So we got lots to talk about today. Steven, I'm glad that you're here because you're going to be leaving us for Japan.
Well, I'm not leaving the show though. I'm just going to Japan. It's not like last time in 2010 when I went and I could only record from a smoky internet cafe with a bunch of Japanese guys whispering. So I have an actual apartment this time with internet. So
It did give the show like a real jazzy vibe because it was like, hi, I'm Stephen Meyerink and I'm here to talk about video games.
This is NPR.
This here on The Quiet Storm.
I'm your host, Derry Merbles, and joining me today is Robert Steinman.
And we are going to be talking about video games, including some real awesome things that we've been playing. So I want to talk about Dragon Quest, because Square Enix doesn't want to talk about Dragon Quest in America, but I want to talk about Dragon Quest.
Bastards.
Even when the Dragon Quest creator tried to talk about Dragon Quest outside of Japan, he got shushed by the Square Enix bosses.
That is actually what happened. So Dragon Quest XI has been announced, ladies and gentlemen, and I can't tell if Square Enix is brilliant or if they're a bunch of damn fools for how they're doing this. I think it's brilliance. I think it's something to explain it. Something to explain it.
It's a really transparent maneuver to get as many people playing Dragon Quest as possible, except for the part where they don't localize it outside of Japan.
So, Mike, go ahead and describe what exactly they're doing.
All right. Well, there are two versions of Dragon Quest XI that we know of. There's the one for the PS4 and one for the 3DS. Outside of that, there was also some scuttlebutt about it maybe appearing on the NX, but that seemed to be just an offhand remark or some unsubstantiated rumors. But in general, the PS4 version is going to be big and beautiful. Unreal Engine 4 looks gorgeous. I can hardly believe what I'm looking at when I saw those GIFs and stuff from that event.
Are you describing Robert Steinman or Dragon Quest XI?
Wow, thank you, Derek. That was really nice of you. I've been having some body image issues as of late, and I really appreciate that.
I have seen Robert in person, and he is a handsome man that made me question things. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right. The show's getting a little deep now. Let's keep going.
So, the 3DS version is doing something that seems overwhelming and crazy, but is really, really freaking interesting. I think at the beginning of the game, you have a 3D visuals better looking Dragon Quest IX thing going on at the top screen. And on the bottom screen, you have a top-down NES or SNES Dragon Quest moving along, square tiles thing on the bottom screen. And I think how they explained it was you can switch between either that you have both going at once for the beginning, and then for most of the game you can switch between either view.
Mm-hmm.
And that's amazing. I mean, it almost seems like too much sensory overload if they had both going on simultaneously the whole time. But having that choice available is incredible to me.
Now, I think it's telling, or maybe I'm reading too much into something when they say that they're going to make the PS4 version with the Unreal Engine. I was really expecting them to use the Final Fantasy 15 engine. Isn't Kingdom Hearts 3, is that being Unreal, or is that their own proprietary engine? Steven, what is it?
I think it's Unreal, isn't it?
Is
I think so.
Oh, did he step out? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Steven sounded really like Caitlin and Derek for a second.
That's me not paying attention to the Skype chat and playing Diablo. But do we think that that's telling that maybe they don't have the confidence in the Final Fantasy 15 engine, or do you think they just want to get this thing out quickly by using Unreal tech?
I wonder if they just want to have something out there first before they start using it in other games. Like they want to have 15 released and to have that be like, this is
And-
what this can do before we start, start pouring it out to all of our games.
Well, they've said that they only plan on using the Luminous engine for Final Fantasy 15, and that's it.
Which I
So-
think that's
Yeah.
a real shame.
The FF7 remake isn't going to be on the Luminous engine either.
Right. And I don't know if that's because they want to give it its own visual identity, or if it's just not cost efficient for them to use that and reprogram it like to suit other gameplay mechanisms, or what it is. But I think I wouldn't say that them using Unreal 4 is like indicative of them being cheap or anything like that. I think it's just what works best with what they're trying to create.
Yeah, I think it's also an unfair assumption to say they're being cheap or going an easier route by doing that. I would assume that they thought they could make the best game they could with the Unreal Engine. Maybe it's the difficulty of the FF15 engine. Maybe it's a cost measure. That's a lot of speculation saying why they would make that choice.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, I'm not trying to read too much into it. I just found it to be a little surprising. Like, they had spent so much time on this engine. There's all the talk about the Fox engine for Metal Gear Solid 5. Like, they put all this time into engines, and then they just say, screw it, we're just going to use Unreal, or, some people who are in less of a position using id Tech. Yikes. I guess maybe that's just helping them get the game out faster, which is awesome, because I would imagine that Dragon Quest XI, seeing as how next year is the 30th anniversary of Dragon Quest, I believe, they're most likely going to try to get that game out next year in Japan. Now, the question is, are we going to get it in the States?
We
Yes,
better.
I think we will.
I don't know what their problem is with not localizing Dragon Quest right now. Like,
Except
think
for
the
the
demand is
Musou
clear.
game.
yeah, I mean, I feel like they may be testing the waters with that a bit. And didn't they also release a statement of some kind that was like, if you want to see more Dragon Quest, you better buy Dragon Quest Warriors? And it's like, but they're not even the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that game
It's like
at
saying
all.
you better buy Metroid Prime Pinball if you want Metroid Prime 3.
Well, Metroid Prime Pinball is amazing. So
Yeah, I mean, Metroid Prime Pinball was awesome.
Isn't
they're
there already a
sort of
Metroid Prime
unrelated.
3?
Yeah, yeah, but I think it came out around that time period.
Oh, okay, sure.
He's just using the argument.
Yeah,
Like,
I understand. I was just being annoying about the details, but yeah, go on.
it's just frustrating.
It's
Like, I still really want Dragon Quest 7. I don't know if I want Dragon Quest 8, though. I don't know if I want the 3DS game, because I've seen the visuals, and it definitely looks nice for a 3DS game, but it doesn't look as good as the PS2 game, and that's kind of a shame. Like,
yeah, but they're adding a lot to that one.
That
I mean,
is-
I guess Dragon Quest 7 is possibly more substantial because it's a complete like new engine, complete remake. But
right.
there's enough additional stuff in 8 in the new one to I think justify.
I really
And I mean,
Quest
like
8.
Xenoblade doesn't look as good as it could on 3DS. Like, it does kind of bug me when I look at it, especially the biggest thing with Xenoblade is that the interface is really blurry for some reason.
Mhm.
But
Fast.
with Dragon Quest, yeah, like I'm okay with Dragon Quest 8 looking a little bit downgraded visually as long as everything still looks sharp, like menu wise. But I mean, I get what you're saying, that you don't want to tarnish the memory of Dragon Quest 8 because that's a beautiful damn game.
That is a really good game. I'd say it's probably one of the most beautiful PlayStation 2 games out there, and it is really held up nicely. I just, it's
See,
like,
I actually
Go ahead, Steven.
I have to disagree. I actually don't mind the visual downgrade because I think I'd be more likely to play that game handheld. More importantly to me is that it runs at a consistent frame rate.
Yeah,
That's a really good point.
Xenoblade is ugly as poo on 3DS, but it runs perfectly, at least as much as I've played, and that's to me more important. Because, to be fair, unless you're playing it on an upscaled emulator, Xenoblade is sort of ugly on a TV too.
Yeah. I got the
The grass, the aliasing on the grass is just horrendous.
If you get
the textures are pretty blurry.
what was it? The component or it's component cables, right? That the Wii could actually use.
Yeah.
I actually
Yes.
bought some component cables just for Xenoblade. It did look substantially better,
Yeah, it helps.
like faux HD, like 480p. It looked okay.
I remember doing the same thing actually. Like I specifically went out and bought those cables because I was like, this game looks so bad.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
that's
got
one of the
mine for
reasons.
Twilight
Like,
Princess.
what was that?
I got component cables for Twilight Princess so I could look cool on the spinner.
We're remodeling. We're remodeling the office, hopefully, in the house here in the next month or so, and putting in another set of bookshelves. And part of me wants to go out and just get like an old CRT TV, just so I can play like my PlayStation 2 games, and they don't look like absolute butt on an HD screen. I'm really thinking about making that investment.
I kind of wish I would have kept my old CRT because, like, one of the reasons why, well, I upgraded to an HD TV back when that was a thing, and I used to be really into Beatmania 2DX, and so I had like a whole bunch of them imported. Like I had one of those magic disc things so that you could unlock your PS2's CD tray and pull it out and use this like basically region lock breaker thing.
Yeah,
So
I
used
have
to-
one of those called Swap Magic that replaces the
That's
top
right.
loader of my PS2. I did that
Oh.
so I could play Tales of Rebirth among some other
Nice.
things.
It's a good reason.
Yeah, I did the same thing, although I had a fat PS2, so I actually had to cut the original plastic off and
Yeah.
Oh,
That's the one I had. The
build
one
a
I-
new one on.
good,
yeah, I have a slim one, so I just had to get a tiny screwdriver and replace some things. It worked great.
I just bought a Japanese PS2 when I was
Well,
in.
fine, Caitlin.
Damn it, Caitlin.
Some of
Caitlin's
us
answer is the best
broke.
one, isn't it?
It was convenient because I was already in Japan and I wanted to play a 12 because 12 came out while I was in
Oh,
Oh,
that's a good.
When were you in Japan, Caitlin? I didn't know that.
my junior year of college, the 05-06 school year.
She's been in Japan longer than me.
Oh, well, I learned
That's
something
okay.
today.
That'll soon change, but for now.
Actually, speaking of Final Fantasy 12, I want to take a tangent on this tangent. So yesterday, I was in a different part of town than I normally was, and
Oh, I saw you get
swung-
on this on Twitter.
right?
Yeah.
So I swung by a GameStop. It was actually a GameStop that I used to work at like 8 years ago. I'm just on the other side of Tucson at this point. So I went in there for some reason, and I was browsing around, just killing time. And they had an entire shelf full of the Final Fantasy 12 collector's guide, and they were all marked down to 97 cents a piece, and they were all sealed.
And it was the
So-
special edition, right? The one that
Yeah.
has the
And so they have collectible covers, and there are like 6 variants, one for each of the characters, and you don't know which one you're going to get until you break the plastic and open the damn thing. So I definitely bought all of them because I'm a totally reasonable person, right? So I'm like sitting in my car. It's 100 degrees outside. I'm sweating my balls off, and I'm just sitting here like opening these strategy guides and what like, am I going to get all 6? And I eventually did get all 6, which is stupid because I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with them. Maybe someday I'll have like a giant glass case where I can put all of my FF12 everything. But yeah, so that was the thing I definitely did. Anyway,
didn't hook me up with Bosch.
I only got one Bosch.
Captain
Really?
Bosch.
Yeah. I got like 4 ashes, and everything else was. I got 1 of everything else.
I feel like every episode that Caitlin's on, I learn more about her type. So we got Geralt, we got Bosch. Like, I'm learning more about Caitlin every day.
Anyway,
You
to
know,
go back a
I
tangent.
love Garrus, so add him to the mix.
There you go.
And you love Agrius, so
Oh, well, she's amazing.
what does that mean?
That's because Agrius is awesome, and
She is
everybody
awesome.
should love Agrius.
Yeah.
Means I swing both ways. I don't know.
Lightning stab all day.
Go, girl. To go back one tangent before we get too lost, the
Okay.
PS2 thing. We were talking about CRT TV. So I had one of those for playing Beatmania, and when I got an HD TV, there's enough of an input lag / like display lag on the HD TV that you can't accurately play Beatmania because it just doesn't register correctly. And I really miss like I noticed that especially with any old games, like anything pre-Wii, it just looks better on a CRT generally. Like I like scan lines too. I think they look cool.
Scanlines do look cool. I'm okay
So
with that.
I miss the one-to-one input of older TVs, and HD TV still hasn't quite gotten that in there. But
Yeah, it's the same reason people play Melee on CRTVs in the
Yeah.
tournament.
Yeah, I should just go out and get. I gotta imagine I could get like a 20-inch CRT for like $100 or something, but finding them might actually be tough because nobody carries them anymore.
I
Right.
have a giant fat 36-inch CRT that I still have my PS2 attached to, and
Those things are so heavy.
I was
I
yeah,
know.
God, I mean I live in a townhouse, and taking that from the basement to the top floor in my bedroom was an ordeal.
That's
but,
how people end up dead. You read
Yeah.
about that on the
You
news.
just dropped that, yeah.
I mean, I paid for college by working at a moving company, so I know how to carry things upstairs. But I should have been there for when Steven was moving.
Oh my god.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
was just playing Digital Devil Saga the other day, and it looks great. Shocker.
I'm so proud of you.
I'm actually playing it a second time.
That game's encounter rate is so bad.
Yeah,
but-
it is. That
Well, I mean, it's a
exactly.
new game plus, so I can cover people's immunities and stuff. It's
Oh,
not
okay.
as bad. But yeah, I'm making a perfect
Smash.
save file for DDS2.
So getting back to the Dragon Quest again, real quick.
Mhm.
Right.
So I think we're going to get 11 in America. I agree with Steven. And
Yeah.
I think we were all kind of saying that we're going to get in America. Do you think we get both versions?
Yes.
Okay.
They
Better.
I
better.
think Nintendo helps localize the 3DS one.
Which one will you guys get?
Both.
PS4.
I'll get both.
I don't know. Other people answer because I'm of two minds.
They're so different. Like they're going to be the same story and everything, but I feel like playing them is going to be a completely different experience. And when you consider
Yeah.
that the 3DS version is like 2 games, I'm most looking forward to PS4 because I'm still really much a fan of like sitting in front of a giant TV screen and just settling in with a long epic RPG. That's special to me. It always has been, and I love it. But there's also something to be said of the convenience of a handheld, and that it looks great. Like both versions of the 3DS one look fantastic.
They really do. They really do. Do we think they're going to have the same battle system? There were kind of some
They have a
rumor-
different battle system. They've already
Yeah.
said that.
So what's that going to be about? Do you guys have a thought on that? Like, is one going to be turn-based? Is one going to be action? Like,
The console one has like Final Fantasy 12 style, like you roam around and see monsters, and then it goes into a turn-based system.
okay.
But you don't like have like a screen shatter effect. If I
Oh yeah, so there's no cutaway. It's like Chrono Trigger, where the monsters exist in the environment that you're walking around in.
It looks
okay.
so good, and the main character looks like Trunks, so my
I-
wife is like totally into it.
he is the first character I've seen drawn by Akira Toriyama that doesn't make me want to vomit all over the place.
Why do you hate Joy? I hate you so much.
No,
This is why. This is exactly why I didn't want to have you back on the podcast. I have been having so much fun
Whoa.
watching
No, no, no,
Dragon
no.
Ball Z Kai, and
So-
you are just a hater.
So Toriyama is a good artist, but my problem with his art is my same problem with everything in Street Fighter. Everybody looks like they have muscles on top of their muscles. Like, hey, those are nice cheeks. Yeah, they're made of biceps. Like every character in Dragon Ball, including the women, looks like a hulky man.
That's not true. Bulma doesn't look hulky. Come on now.
She has sort of boxy shoulders, but I think Steven's being a little unfair.
No, I don't think I'm being unfair. I don't like the style.
I'm not a huge fan of the art style either.
What about Chrono Trigger though?
I don't even like Chrono Triggers. Like
What?
the sprites look amazing in Chrono Trigger.
I
And I love the game, and then I bought the game and saw the box art, and I was like, oh my god, everybody looks terrible.
I am really sorry to the listeners for just kamehamehaing your ears right now. I'm sorry about
In
that.
fact, I'm gonna throw that gauntlet down. All the character artwork looks way better in Chrono Cross, except for maybe.
I love Chrono Cross, dude. You know I'm like the Chrono Cross defender, but some of those character designs look terrible.
Yes, some of them are bad, but let's also be fair. Toriyama has designed a lot of characters.
Yeah, there's some really bad Dragon Ball characters.
Well,
too.
okay, Mr. Popo is probably the most racist thing I've ever seen.
Well, haven't you
You
seen
should
like?
probably not read some of the old the Spirit comics from the 30s.
Well, Rob, you said you're watching the new Dragon Ball Z, right? Kai or whatever. Isn't there a new group of villains? Because I saw this picture that was like, so the new group of villains in Dragon Ball Z Kai is basically the Backyardigans, and they're like,
I think you're talking
6
about Dragon
people.
Ball Super, because
Oh,
I haven't
Super,
been watching
okay.
Super. Kai is just a retelling of Dragon Ball Z with all the
my bad.
filler. All the filler has been removed, so it is just like they actually kill Frieza in like 50 episodes instead of 200.
wow.
It is something I can actually recommend Kai. I said it on the last show. Like I can recommend Kai to everyone.
It
because-
sounds like they're doing what they're doing with Evangelion, where they're like, all right, we're gonna retell this and cut out stupidness.
Well, the problem is that Evangelion has gotten even more pretentious, which I didn't think was possible. It's approaching some level of quantum singularity at this point, but I still love it.
Click
But
on this picture I put in Skype chat. Tell me those are not the Backyardigans. They got the penguin. They got the weird curly antenna thing.
Oh my God, it's identical.
That is amazing.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
And
Fake
that
though.
weird cat guy is. I think Dragon Ball Super is an adaptation of, or starting out as an adaptation of the last two Dragon Ball Z movies, because that weird like Egyptian cat-looking dude is the enemy from the
Yeah,
Dragon
Battle
Ball
of the
movie from
Gods.
last year.
Oh, is this not real though? Is this fake?
No,
Yeah,
no,
no,
that's
it's-
real.
All right.
that's Toriyama artwork.
I've been reading the manga and I've recognized those not backyardigans.
What are the Backyardigans? I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Oh, I guess this might actually be fake. Now that I'm looking into it. By looking into it, I mean like reading the first damn comic.
But-
It says it was somebody's fan art, but it really does look like him.
I really love the Dragon Quest art. I got so excited about Dragon Quest XI's announcement that I found Dragon Quest 6 on DS while I was in West Virginia, and I was just like, sold! You know, probably won't play it for a year or so, but I was just like, I need to play it. I love Dragon Quest. There's just something so wholesome about it. Like,
Yeah, I agree. It's like the Dragon Quest games are like sort of innocent spirit of adventure fairy tale games, while Final Fantasy games are occasionally convoluted sci-fi medieval messes. And I say that with a lot of affection.
I say that with affection too. I agree with you.
And I've beaten all of the Dragon Quest games 1 through 9 except for 7, which makes me really, really want that 7 3DS remake all the more. But yeah, I love Dragon Quest. I miss it. I really want to get more Dragon Quest in me soon.
I
Yeah.
hope they do the right thing. Just please do the right thing, Square Enix. Like, bring that out.
I hope
think
they
they
bring
will.
a theater of them over here as well.
I thought that was coming out in America, the Dragon Quest
They
theater.
haven't said anything. I
John was
actually,
telling me. Sorry, go ahead, Derek.
I was gonna say I just imported it because for my birthday I decided to treat myself to a Japanese 3DS. So
Cool.
I bought it with that, and it's getting here tomorrow, and I can't wait. I can't wait.
John bought it and was telling me that he does not like the 3D Dragon Quest Theater Rhythm as much as Final Fantasy because the battle perspective is really hard to gauge.
It's
It
more
makes
like
it
Guitar
difficult
Hero,
to score.
isn't it?
It's what?
It's more like Guitar Hero, like it's coming from the top down
Yeah, but
instead
apparently
of
they
sideways.
have like a weird arc to them. So like there's like perspective shifting where they come in at a 3D angle. And so
So they have it as like coming from the top with without the characters visible, like an old.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
looks like Dragon Quest rather
Okay.
than Final Fantasy, which is cool.
That
Or,
sounds
well,
cool.
looks
but
like
yeah,
Dragon Quest before 8. That is.
I'm not sure how it's gonna. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, I'll report back and let
It
you
makes
know.
me wonder what they're gonna do when they inevitably make a Kingdom Hearts Theater Rhythm.
There has not been any Kingdom Hearts DLC for the for the other Theater Rhythm games, so I think it's a very, very logical step for them to take. And I can already hear Steven just jumping up and down.
Well, speaking of Kingdom Hearts, I actually got into an argument with one of my former students this past week about when do we think Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming out. He seems to think it's going to come out next year in 2016.
Oh.
No, not. I don't think it's coming out the same year as Final Fantasy.
Yeah, no way. And
I think it's going to be 2017.
am I going to be right? Because at Gamescom they kind of seem to back off a little bit on Final Fantasy 15. Is that going to be late next year, like Mr. Steinman said?
I feel like maybe Japan might get it late spring.
Well,
but-
they actually already said
Was
they're just
simultaneous release, right?
Oh, really? Okay.
I think it's going to be middle of the year.
Yeah, then definitely
'Cause
a bit later.
They said they know when it's coming out. They've said they're on track, and they said it's not coming out in 2017, which is just the vaguest vague that ever vague to vague.
Right? Yeah. So 2018. Right?
2018.
They're like, it's not coming out in 2017. We won't make you wait that long. And I'm like, so does that mean 2016? Because that would have been a much
It means
faster way to say that.
2020.
We're actually going to go back in time, release it in 2010, and you're all going to really love it.
Ooh, I like that.
It means please be excited.
Yeah, it's going to be time compression, and it's going to work. I would say September. I think September at the very earliest. But I don't think there's any way Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out next year. Now, here's the question. Do we think Kingdom Hearts 3 before Final Fantasy VII Remake or after?
Before.
Before.
Before, yeah.
Or
I
maybe
also
the
think-
same year. I can see them releasing the remake the same year as Kingdom Hearts.
That might be fair. That might be fair.
About the same year, I don't think.
I could see maybe same year. Maybe.
Because I
Obviously,
bet they're going to
it's
use
before.
either the Unreal Engine or Luminous on 7. I'm
Oh,
guessing
I think that's going to be Unreal.
because Luminous seems
Like-
like it's the Final Fantasy 15 engine
I
now.
think it's gonna be Unreal 2, Rob. Looks so cool.
It's going to be so awesome. Sugoi. Sorry. I'm really
Too
sorry.
funny.
I'm really sorry.
That's crossing a weeaboo line that I am not willing to cross.
I apologize. I feel bad about that one. Okay, who's got games to talk about? Because I'm just gonna go sit in the corner and think about what I just did.
You can talk about
Well,
your impressions on Divinity, Rob.
Yeah, Steven and I got to play a little bit of Divinity together, Divinity Original Sin, in anticipation of the Enhanced Edition, and also the announcement of Divinity Original Sin 2, and that they're going to do a Kickstarter. We didn't get to play nearly enough, Steven, because I was really enjoying myself, but here you
My
are
goal
going
was
to Japan.
just to string you along and
he's coming
and
back.
make you want to play more. We can play more once I go to South Carolina.
Okay. No, I really was digging on it. I mean, it's just to play a game that is completely built around a multiplayer isometric RPG, like classic computer RPG, is just so it was freeing. And I was finally seeing what everybody was in love with about that game, whereas when I was playing it by myself, it felt a little fiddly to control 4 characters. It was kind of the Wasteland 2 problem of I have 4 characters with 4 inventories and 4 sets of skills, and this is getting a little cumbersome. But now Steven can take 2 and I can take 2, and it's a lot more manageable, and we're like talking to each other. I randomly killed the first 2 NPCs that we randomly came across.
No. I mean, let you tell them the whole story about that.
So we're like,
They're 2 drunk dudes, and if you walk up to them, you start a dialogue where they're total jerks, and you can either convince them that you are the people who were supposed to be there, or you can murder them. Rob decided to bypass all of that and just fired an arrow and murdered one of them.
I wanted to see how strong my archery skill was, and it turned out it was very strong. He popped like a pimple. I was okay with that.
Popped like a pimple. Gross.
Well, that's how I used to describe District 9 to people. Is I'm like, yeah, the enemies and bad guys pop like pimples. I think that is incredibly accurate.
Oh, like in Cloverfield,
We
the first
never-
death in Cloverfield.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, no, we can definitely play more. Like I said, Divinity is one of those games that like is a great game by itself, but co-op is sort of a magic ingredient. I feel in a lot of cases,
Yeah.
and there are so few like really in-depth story RPGs with systems that complicated that also support, not only support but sort of emphasize co-op. That it's sort of in a class of its own, if you ask me.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you. Like, I went from being like, oh, do I want to play Pillars of Eternity or do I want to play Divinity? And now it's just like, Divinity. Just because I can play it with you. Like, I'm really excited to try Pillars at some point, but I went from like, what was that?
I would wait to play Pillars till the expansion at this point because the expansion has a bunch of features
Yeah.
that go back to the main game that make the main game better. So not that it needed them, but better
Yeah.
results.
I've finished Act 1 of Pillars, but I'm going to wait for the expansion before I continue, because, I mean, it fell by the wayside with Retro Encounter and other stuff taking up a lot of my time.
Now, Steven, since you were big into Divinity Original Sin, I'm going to ask you, what are you looking for with Divinity 2? Like, what do you want them to... Are you just looking for a sequel that's just bigger, badder, more badass, or are you looking for, like, specific differences?
So the way they described it on their like pitch before they started their Kickstarter was that they want this to be their Baldur's Gate 2, which is to say Baldur's Gate 1 was a great game, but Baldur's Gate 2 is probably the best game that old BioWare ever made. And I know that's a bold claim, but it's probably the most well-rounded. It was basically just a bigger Baldur's Gate 1. With Divinity 2, they have so many interesting systems in place that bigger would actually add a lot because, you add another type of element or you add another, like, more ways for spells to interact. What I would love to see is basically a more focused main story, just basically a better journal. All the stuff it sounds like they're doing in the Enhanced Edition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the journal's a little cumbersome. It was hard to figure out what quests I needed to do. I think their inventory system isn't terrible. It's not nearly as bad as Wasteland 2, in my opinion, but it's still a little cumbersome.
Yeah, like the inventory I think is okay, and like stats and stuff, but what really needs an overhaul, and they're aware of it because people said, and it's in the Enhanced Edition, is it needs a better map because the map is fine, but it's very like zoomed up and you can't move it around, and you didn't even see later in the game you have like 50 quests, so you just have 50 just tabs that you click and a ton of text pops down. There's no way to just see what do I have to be doing with this quest.
What about quests?
What about quests?
What about quest?
I just want the potion.
What if I didn't want the potion? And there are lots of other little things that they could do. Like, the crafting system in Divinity is awesome, but it's a little bit obtuse because it's so in depth, but it doesn't track what you've made. So like I'll be playing and I was the crafter in the main game I played, and so like I'm crafting stuff, and then like 50 hours in, I'm like, oh my god, I can make like 5 million things. I don't remember how to make them. So some sort of like crafting log where it's like, here, you've made this. This is the recipe. You just to have it there would be really cool. So I mean, that's a long-winded way of saying basically more.
Do we think it's going to be 4-player? I'm pretty sure based on that artwork, it's going to be 4-player.
Oh yeah, I would be shocked if it wasn't, because that's one of the most popular mods for the existing game is a 4-player mod.
That
I
would
don't
just
know
make
if
that
it'd be-
game nuts.
Well, see, the only thing is in 4-player Divinity 1 or Divinity Original Sin, the two other characters are not part of the story. Like they're scripted characters, but all the party banter between the two heroes is only 2-player. So I'm guessing if they were to do a 4-player game, they would have it set up where like all 4 characters can interact and have conversations together, because those conversations affect your character traits, like whether you're compassionate or aggressive, and those affect your stats and your reputation. So I would be shocked if it wasn't 4-player though. That's an easy ad.
Are we happy that they're doing a Kickstarter?
I think so.
There was a little bit of backlash online over the second Kickstarter. People being like, "Hey, come on, man! You guys made so much money the first time. Why do you have to take more of our money?"
I don't see why they would be upset. They had an enormously successful Kickstarter, and then they delivered on that Kickstarter. So the precedent is they're really good at delivering on Kickstarter promises.
Yeah,
So-
and not only that, but they also have the enhanced edition coming out for free for everybody who bought the first one. So you're getting basically 2 games.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah,
I'm with you guys. I was
this
just
is-
pointing out the backlash.
This is the opposite
different
of
from
the
Red
Mega
Ash
Man stuff.
situation.
Yeah, we were making the same comment. Go ahead.
Yep. No, yeah, you're right. It's like, we haven't delivered our first game yet, and people are iffy on it. So please give us money for another game.
I know it's not an RPG, but we've had so many
They
great.
just opened a second Kickstarter for Red Ash, a second one.
Like
What?
The first
now?
one failed.
Yeah,
Wait,
the first one failed. They're doing another one now.
Did they serious? Oh my god.
Wait a minute. No,
Yeah.
the first one made it because they had a backer.
No, what happened, that
Oh,
person
God.
funded them, but did not fund them via Kickstarter. So they came on Kickstarter and were like, yeah, all the money you've now donated is now going towards extra content because the game is guaranteed, which is great, I guess, if you backed it, but a little dishonest and not a cool precedent.
Jesse, you're saying they just started a second Kickstarter?
Well, Mike was saying that. I don't know about
Mike,
it, but
Mike, second Kickstarter?
Yeah. I thought I did. We're. Huh. Okay. I guess I can't. I guess I can't see it. I guess maybe I was imagining that. But they've been extra shady about their
I see-
Kickstarters.
I see an article right now that just says like Red Ash the Animation launches a new fundraiser for expanded
Okay.
production as of
That must
yesterday.
be what it was. All right.
Yeah.
I
I saw
really
they had done another one.
I feel like they are capitalizing on nostalgia, and I think they have legitimately good designs. Like, they want to make this world in this game, but I also think they're trying way too hard to capitalize and monetize.
Yeah.
Like, did we talk about this in the last episode I was on? I
Oh,
feel
we
like-
talked a little bit about it, but go ahead, elaborate, because I feel like more news has come out that just makes this even more disgusting.
I just feel like, and you can't point it at concept, you can't point it at Inti Creates. It's just like it feels like people's nostalgia is being used to wring out some cash. Like, and then the
sure.
backer they got, like the person funding or the company funding the game is this Chinese company whose front page is a bunch of stolen artwork from other games. Talking about
Yeah.
how terrible those games are. Like, there's Master Chief, and it's like, he is crap, and like,
What?
I'm like, wow, this gives me faith in the product they're going to.
Oh, got it. I never even looked into them. All I knew was that they were a Chinese company and they credited them for whatever they had published before, and it was like nothing of note. Because the Kickstarter was like, we're working with celebrated publisher Fuse, and I was like, who?
Who? I was like, the Insomniac game? Like, what are you guys talking about right now? Like,
I
oh
think
god.
they're fairly prominent in China. I could be wrong, but I know they're pretty moneyed.
Okay.
I don't know,
But
man.
I mean, I guess they're not making the game; they're just funding it. But if they're funding it, like, it just goes back to the whole point of why did you even have a Kickstarter if you have a
Yeah,
person funding it,
exactly.
because they're going to get final say.
Now, obviously, we're not talking about RPGs here, but we've had so many RPGs get funded through Kickstarter that I think it's important to talk about this. Is this the type of thing that could end up like ruining people's impressions of Kickstarter and like have a serious level of
Yes.
backlash?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think that it's reached a tipping point yet, because I mean, look at the Kickstarters that just arose out of that Sony conference. I mean, Shenmue and Bloodstained right before Shenmue. So people still do have faith in Kickstarter, but eventually, if enough bad Kickstarter related things happen at once, I wouldn't be surprised if the backlash was so great that it Kickstarter funding for games just dropped like a rock. But we aren't there yet.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll ever get there, just because there's bad projects everywhere, and there are so many successful Kickstarters that I feel like as long as, I think I actually, and I have no basis for this other than I got a feeling, but I feel like actually these failed ones and these ones that are super shady will actually cause the good ones to be even more on the up and up, and to really make sure that they're covering these things and like being honest and planning out what they're doing better. You know.
Yeah,
Could be
but I think
I'd like to be
I
right.
think games are kind of unique in that they're extra susceptible to like nostalgia, like you were saying.
Mm.
So that's easier to exploit.
Yeah, the two that I just mentioned, Bloodstained and Shenmue, are going right for the nostalgia center of the brain.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
it kind of breaks my heart a little bit. It really breaks my heart because, like, I love Keiji Inafune, I love Mega Man, but, like, this stuff is getting nasty. Like, it's getting disgusting. I'm not happy about it. I'm not going to fund their Kickstarter. For them to sit there with their Red Ash Kickstarter and then suddenly say, okay, well, now Mighty Number 9 is going to be delayed because we are having trouble making it, like,
yeah,
that's unacceptable.
they knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, you guys, that's like the Batman thing, where they announced the Batman pre-orders for Arkham Knight, and then all of a sudden, after the pre-orders are all done, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to delay the game quite a bit into the summer. Please understand, like,
And-
you guys knew.
And I know they claim, like they swear up and down that they had no plans to get funding for Red Ash, like from an external publisher. They were like, yeah, this happened. These interactions happened.
Yeah.
In the middle of the Kickstarter. Business interactions don't happen in 2 weeks in which you're like, yes, I will fund your entire expensive $1 million video game. Like, there is no way that they didn't at least know that was on the table. That should have been disclosed up front, that we might be seeking external funding.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
little gross.
It was super shitty. I've never withdrawn a Kickstarter pledge before, and I did it with that game.
I agree with you. I have only contributed to the Bloodstained Kickstarter because I'm an idiot and decided to put $100 toward that because I was like,
An idiot, Rob.
Oh, you put $100 on that?
I put $100 toward it. I was like, I love me some Igarashi Vanias.
I mean, I backed it at 60, and I felt like I was going overboard.
So I really hope Iga comes through. I don't want him to turn into this, I don't want to just blame Inafune, but I really hope that Iga comes through and he's just like, okay, here we go. Like,
Well, also too, Iga has directed more. Like, we always forget that Inafune has directed some games, but like even like the supposed creator of Mega Man thing, he's not the only creator of Mega
exactly,
Man. Like,
exactly.
and I from what I did, I was doing some reading, and he's apparently he brushed up against Capcom the wrong way. It's entirely possible that he's just not good. Not that he's the main manager of the project, but maybe he's better as a creator than a manager.
Well, and there's also an element of, I think I have to go every podcast bringing up the Evil Within, but here we go again. Shinji Mikami got so much credit for Resident Evil, and Resident Evil 4 in particular, and the original and the remake, and then he makes the Evil Within, which was a game that has some good moments, but it's kind of a mess in some areas. I think people forget that it's not just one creator making these games. It's like, oh, great, Ken Levine is making another game. But if he doesn't have the people behind him, the programmers, the people with vision, the auteur thing only goes so far. You need people to back it up.
Yeah, I really don't enjoy auteur theory related to video games because there's so many moving parts in a video game that, especially with the larger the budget of the game, the more people are involved with every line of code with it. I don't like when a game has a hundreds of millions of dollar budget and is just a huge AAA game. The effect of one person is not nearly as great, and the creative lead of a video game will almost never have the same level of efficacy or auteurism than the director or even the screenwriter of a film. So I don't think auteur theory holds up as well for video games once you get to a certain level of team size.
That's an interesting discussion. I'm not sure I 100% agree, but I partially agree.
Well, keep going.
Well, so I would argue that you could make the exact same comment about a film because you have all the people involved with the construction of a scene. You have your people building the set. You have your actors. You have, they're all being directed by the director. But you could argue that's the same thing somebody like Miyamoto does when he's like, you should make Mario's jump feel like this, or you should make these guys pop in a different way. Like,
Well, now
I would agree because programming is not a similar art to putting together a scene or composing a shot. But I don't know. I sort of feel like you have equally as many hands. But then the reason I sort of want to agree is then you could say auteur theory just doesn't apply to film either because.
Well, let me try to jump in there a little bit. I think that I agree with what you're trying to say, Stephen, but at the end of the day, after everything's been filmed for, like, let's take a big budget sci-fi epic. Let's take, Mad Max or Interstellar, something along those lines. Eventually, it all boils down to the director and the editor, and they are now going to assemble the film in such a way to tell a story and tell a narrative. If you look at the original cut for Star Wars, the original 1977 movie, that movie's a mess. Like, the original cut of that movie is just a train wreck. And then the editor got in there and actually created something, one of the greatest epics of our time. Mad Max, Tom Hardy was saying how frustrated he was making Mad Max Fury Road because he couldn't see what the director was going for. And he actually, at like the most recent Comic-Con, he turned to the director and said, I'm really sorry I was such a jerk on the set because I didn't realize what you were going for. Then you guys went behind the scenes, worked on the movie for almost a year and a half in the editing room, and we got something that is just absolutely bananas. So I think there is an element of like a little bit of that auteur theory that's a little different from video games versus movies, because the director can get in there and either build something incredible or they can almost destroy it themselves just by the way that they edit the entire film together. Whereas with a video game, you have all these moving parts that everything comes together, but they're all different pieces coming together, if that makes sense.
I think I mean, I agree. And I think it really depends on who your director / lead is. Some people keep closer tabs on individual parts of it,
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it would just depend on, like most things, I guess, it depends on the situation.
Yeah. But
I agree with the point you made earlier. Like, Mikami gets credited for a lot of these games, but like Hideki Kamiya probably has more to do with Resident Evil 2 than Mikami.
Oh, yeah. And Resident Evil 2 is fantastic. And can we talk about it?
It's not.
It's not an RPG, but we can talk about it.
It's getting remade. End of discussion.
It's my damn show. I'm saying we can talk about it. Resident Evil 2 remake. It's happening. I am so happy. I can't believe it's happening. I was really worried of the nightmare scenario of Resident Evil 0 comes out and sucks and then doesn't sell a whole lot of copies, and they say, well, nobody likes Resident Evil anymore. They're doing it. They're doing a Resident Evil 2 remake. I want to replay Resident Evil 2 right now. Where's my Vita? Where's my Vita? I need to replay it. But that's neither here nor there.
So that's the end of Rob today.
Is that more the kind of, we've gotten so much flack from so many people talking about all the remakes and how that's all that's happening in video games right now is nothing but remakes. Are there some remakes that we're just okay with?
I do not understand. Like, there was so much complaining on Capcom's Facebook page when they announced that. Just to use that as an example, not the specific Resident Evil. People like, oh my god, more remakes, make a new game, blah, blah, blah. Like, make Resident Evil 3. And I'm like, I really feel like people are confusing a complete remake with an HD remaster.
Yeah,
like,
this is not going to be an
Final Fantasy 12. When Arnie Roth said they're remaking it, everybody in the world should have known he's not talking about a remake of Final Fantasy 12. Because A, that's never going to happen.
No.
And B,
It doesn't have to happen.
yeah, like, I feel like there's this weird confluence of people are just, they hear remake and they're like, oh, another remaster. It's like, no, this is a remake.
Well,
and Resident Evil 2 remake, I don't understand how people are complaining, because after the first remake came out, everybody wanted 2 remade. And everybody still wanted it, and then they finally said yes, and then they're like, oh, a remake.
Well, and you had all this backlash over the Final Fantasy VII remake, and it was like, you guys do realize people were bitching and moaning about this thing for the better part of 10 years, ever since they saw Cloud jump off a train using the PlayStation 3 engine. Like, people wanted this remake, and now they're doing it. And, of course, now people are going to complain, because it's the internet, and nobody posts positive things.
Some people are never happy.
Yeah.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Yes.
So
Speaking-
put me in the camp of I don't mind remakes.
I don't mind as long as I think some remakes are going too far. I don't think not remake, but HD remaster. I don't think we needed Prototype 1 and 2 HD remastered playing worse performance-wise than the original games.
Right,
That's
yeah.
a little bizarre.
That is
Right. Well, execution matters a lot too, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, like Silent Hill Collection was atrocious.
Way to ruin that franchise. Although now they're making pachinko machines for Silent Hill.
Vaughn, I'm gonna get upset. I can't talk about Konami right now.
Well, speaking of Final Fantasy
Can't talk
VII
about-
remakes and legality, Jesse, do you want to talk about the Final Fantasy VII side-scrolling beat 'em up?
Yeah, it's like this weird thing that I forget what the actual company was, some indie company that's making a side-scrolling beat 'em up for the Wii U, but they just
For
released
the Wii U.
no, not this Final Fantasy VII one. They're making
Oh,
another
okay.
game, and so they have this. Out of nowhere, they're like, we're making a Final Fantasy VII reimagining as a side-scroller beat 'em up. And it actually looks. I mean, the art looks cool. Like it looks cool. I tried to download the demo, but it wasn't working for me. But
Yeah,
It's-
the Chrome version, the internet version didn't work for me because they said it doesn't support Chrome, which, no.
yeah,
What?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
I mean, that's-
Chrome is not a supported browser, and I was like, I'm not a supported player.
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah. So there's been like lots of problems so far. But the point is that in their press release, they're like, this is a 100% like non-profit fan made game, right? And it always bugs me as a lawyer, and it probably doesn't bug anyone else, but I'm just gonna sort of go off on this, and that people think that like you can make copies and just like they're just blatantly violating Square Enix's copyright and trademark, and people think that like, oh, I'm gonna do this and it's gonna be non-profit, therefore I can just do it, and that's not the case.
That's not how
And
that works.
it's not how it works, right? Like you're still ripping off their property, and they have an obligation to police their IP. Like if they don't enforce it, they will lose the protection. So like they're going to come after you. It's not, especially when you announce it like that.
I vaguely recall, like when Mohang Scrolls came out and Bethesda had to pursue litigation, and like if nobody seemed that interested in the case, and they said if we don't pursue this, we will lose the right to pursue it in the future. So like
Yeah.
it's an interesting argument.
And for that, they basically had to have a legal precedent started for what constitutes and what doesn't constitute a misuse of the Elder Scrolls name or something. So I mean, I mean, Jesse obviously has it right. There's definitely going to be a cease and desist order or something on this FF7 beat 'em up soon, which is a shame because like Final Fight Fantasy 7 sounds kind of interesting, but
Can you find turkey legs inside of barrels? This is important.
Chocobo legs, Rob?
Oh, that's
That would be great.
terrible. Why would you
I
eat
know.
chocobos?
Yeah,
Turkey
tell that to
fried
half the
chocobo.
side quests in Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah.
There's an
Oh,
entire
yeah.
arc where you're murdering chocobos, and I'm like, I'm not okay with this.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's terrifying. Why would you
It's
do
pretty
that?
delicious.
There's
I don't know.
there's a quest in 14 where you help a guy rescue a chocobo hatchling, and then the hatchling is captured by a poacher, and he kills it and eats it.
Oh,
Well, he kills it.
no.
He kills it, and then the NPC that's assisting you is like, "Well, it's already dead, so I should honor its life by eating it."
No, this is no.
That makes sense to me.
That's how I feel about family members too. What?
So,
I
yeah,
am not okay with any of this.
eat him. Done.
Anywho,
Anyhow,
Had a
so
good run. Let's eat his haunches.
you know, you fried those puppies up. That sounds like there's a lot of meat on them.
oh God, I am not okay with any of this.
Hey guys, I gotta interject real quick. D23 is happening right now, and the Kingdom Hearts panel starts in about 50 minutes, and I'm really excited about that.
Oh, you shouldn't be because they're not going to announce anything and they're not going to show Kingdom Hearts 3.
They
So.
might
Don't you
show
remember
like
when
a
they said
world
they
or
were going to announce something here?
It's a Kingdom Hearts panel, so
It's
like,
an announcement of an announcement.
please look forward to it.
I
That joke
actually
never
think they're
gets
gonna announce
old.
a new world.
What?
I think they're going to announce a new world.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Now, now that I have my lawyer here, I'm going to ask Jesse a question. So enlighten us a little bit. Enlighten the layman. When it comes to things like Dragon Ball Z Abridged, Why is that okay? Is that because it is parody? Is that why that's okay versus the Final Fantasy VII beat 'em up?
I'm not familiar with Dragon Ball Z Abridged.
So that's
Um,
the fan made like kind of voiceover. We're gonna make fun of Dragon Ball Z and go through the entire story, but we're having fun and it's very referential humor, like kind of Family Guy-ish in places. Like
Can't I just mind crush him?
and they're actually using the original animation from Dragon Ball Z, but they've
Mhm.
gotten the blessing from Funimation. They're totally okay with it. Some of the voice actors for Dragon Ball Z Abridged are actually in the latest Dragon Ball Z Resurrection of F movie. Like, is that just Funimation being completely different and okay with it, or is it because it's parody?
Well, it's sort of both. So you can the whoever owns the copyright can grant or license the ability to make a copy or a derivative work, right? But they're also in a better position because it's a parody.
Okay, this is like why Saturday Night Live doesn't get sued and stuff like that.
I think it also helps that DBZ Abridged is a show that's not being sold. And if they were selling it as a product or making money off of it in a more obvious way, then there would be more problems. But it's, being a YouTube show that presumably doesn't make a lot of money also helps their case.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, making money would make it worse, but as we've already kind of gone over, you can be nonprofit and it's still violating copyright.
Right.
I'm learning.
Isn't it because like they could argue that it affects awareness of the brand?
Well, being able to make money off of the whatever it is only one of that we call it the bundle of rights that are in copyright, and that's only one of them. So it's not just about making money that is the deciding factor of whether or not it violates copyright.
We need more lawyers
Yes.
on this show. This is all very interesting.
I was about to say I need to get into a profession so I can know about something and talk about it.
You're gonna be a localizer,
You
dude.
know about
Shut up.
things.
I know about things.
You're
I
gonna
know
know
what
about
things are.
when does my physics knowledge ever come into use around here? Like
Well,
seriously.
apparently, it comes into you breaking every game you touch. Oh my
Oh.
god! We
Yeah,
played
I know.
Divinity for like an hour, and Rob broke it more times than in my 65-hour playthrough.
I believe that so much.
Glitch. Yeah, we
You
tried
are
to load the
on
game
level.
right after the character creator and it just crashed. The second
What's
mistake
wrong
was
with
all your
you?
fault. The second
Like,
mistake was all your fault.
His game crashed and broke mine. Yeah, the second time wasn't a glitch. That was my fault. They patched in a thing where you can make your game private and it defaults to off. So every time we were loading, Rob's like, I can't join your game. And I was getting really angry, and it's because
We spent like 40 minutes trying to figure this out. Oh man.
That's your new career. You need to go into QA.
Oh no, I couldn't do that. Like my students have asked me, like, "Hey, wouldn't you want to work on games?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd be starting out in QA, and I'd want to kill myself." They're like, "Why would you have a problem with that?" I would be going around Grand Theft Auto just testing walls to see if I could fall through them.
you
It-
jump a million times into a wall.
It would be terrifying. It would be terrible. Ay,
How is that different than what you already do?
that is true. That the glitch lich is strong with this one. Who else has games to talk about? Things and games and stuff.
Well, I don't know if I mentioned this actually or not. I guess I did at the beginning of this podcast. But so I've been playing Mother 3 recently. I live in Tucson, Arizona, and a couple of weeks ago we had Camp Fangamer here. If you're familiar with Fangamer, they're like a video game merch company. They sell like T-shirts and memorabilia, posters, all that kind of stuff. But they started out primarily doing stuff for Earthbound. And weirdly enough, they're actually based out of Tucson, Arizona. And what the hell else is here other than like me and the University of Arizona? I don't know.
Heat,
Yeah, Heat.
Heat and John McCain.
Heat and Death.
That's John McCain. Sorry.
thing.
Topical humor.
So it's like, so they actually are based here. They don't have like a store that you can go to, but they have their offices here. And so they held Camp Fangamer, which is the first ever Earthbound fan convention. And I went to it a few weeks ago. It was just held at a Hilton hotel here. It was surprisingly populated. I guess I didn't expect very many people to show, but there were like a good 500 people there. They had panels, they had art contests, video contests, all kinds of cool stuff. And it was just a neat place to go and celebrate Earthbound fandom. So
Yeah,
since I'm
you
such a
should-
big fan, what?
You should never underestimate that Earthbound fandom, because I mean, just look at the reach and and dedication of the people at Starman.net. Like, Earthbound fans do not mess around. I'm not surprised that people would travel for that.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I showed up, because for me it was like 15 minutes away, so it was a no-brainer. But I saw cars in the parking lot from all over the country, and I was like, wow, people really care, which is cool. I mean, they're dedicated. So after all of that, I was in my Earthboundy kind of mood, and I realized that I still hadn't beaten Mother 3. I had started up the fan translation years ago, and I got to like chapter 4, and so I was like, all right, you know what, it's time. Fine, I'll do it. So I restarted a playthrough of it, and I've been being really anal retentive about like talking to every NPC a million times and all that. I bought the Mother 3 handbook when Fangamer released it back in 2000. Let's see, I have the copyright date here. Was it like 6 or 9? I don't know. 2009 is when the guide came out. The game came out in 06. So I've had this book sitting on my shelf, and I have been terrified of looking at it for fear of having everything spoiled. So I was like, you know what? It's time. So yeah, I've been playing Mother 3. Game holds up incredibly well. I'm in chapter 7 out of 8, so I'm pretty far along. It's really amazing how, I mean, like I know a lot of it has to do with the original script, sure, but the tone of the fan translation is so in line with Earthbound's localization. And it's one of those games where you actively seek out NPCs to speak to because you want to see what they're going to say. Like it's all contributing to this really kind of warm, fuzzy sense of like an alive world that has its own strange, quirky sense of humor. And besides that, Mother 3 is a game that is really funny and really offbeat, but really sad and so messed up in a lot of ways. Like, a lot of major characters die, and they don't pretend like they haven't died. It's just oh yeah, they're dead.
I've actually beaten Mother 3. It's the only Earthbound game I've beaten from start to finish. Only Mother game. And like I actually like 3 better than Earthbound. I mean, again, I've only played the beginning and the final boss of Earthbound, but Mother 3, you're right, it seems so light. Like, it seems like there's a lot of levity, and there is, but it's also like, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a lot in that game that is morbidly depressing.
Yeah.
And not in like something sad happened. It's like, no, something sad happened, and you are going to suffer from existential dread for the rest of your existence.
It's the kind of game that actually makes you think a lot, and it's not what you expect when you see the bright, colorful graphics and like the happy-go-lucky music that pops up. And there's also some really melancholy stuff. Like, it's a surprisingly emotional and effective game. And I've really enjoyed the playthrough of it so far. And it also just holds up really well. It's just a fun RPG. It's got a cool rhythm mechanic in the battle system that I think we were mentioning earlier. It's kind of off on emulators, so I'd recommend.
Yeah, that's why I stopped playing it.
Yeah, but
they released, what was it, the original Mother a couple months ago? Was that on Wii U Virtual Console?
Yeah, I actually think the original Mother is a bad game, but especially in the latter portions of it, the team there wanted to make, basically a Dragon Quest clone, basically a simple RPG, but with this unusual world and tone and sort of plot idea. And the plot stuff is actually pretty interesting. Reading a wiki article about Mother 1 is an interesting experience, but actually playing it is miserable because the last couple dungeons, like, enemies will one-shot you regardless of how much you level.
That sounds like my kind of game. Right?
There's a patch, actually, like a rebalancing patch that people made because that game is so intolerably grindy and hard.
It needs one.
I just want a patch for that game that makes all the enemies the hippie.
the retro new age hippie.
I want a rhythm game that's nothing but monkey dances to open secret doors.
Oh, cool! It's called Rhythm Heaven, and you should try it. It's a good game. But yeah, so I don't really have anything else to add to it. I've been playing it, and I have been pleasantly surprised by how well it holds up, thematically as well as mechanically. It's a fun RPG. Like, it's definitely story heavy for sure, but there are sections where you do have to grind. You don't have to grind too much, but grind like a little bit. You have to manage your items carefully. Like, the battles can be challenging. It's definitely not a cakewalk, but highly recommended if you're an Earthbound fan and just never got around to playing it like me. I mean, it's out there. Go for it. And then there's also a fan-developed Mother 4 coming out, which is interesting because we were just talking about copyright stuff. I don't know how that's going to work because it's being built on their own brand new engine, but it looks exactly like an Earthbound game with new graphics. And the whole, it's going to be free. Like, it's going to be released as a standalone program for PC. You're not going to need an emulator or anything like that. It's just like its own thing. but it's scheduled to come out this year or next year, whenever it's done. So I hope it doesn't get C&D'd, but at the same time, I guess I understand reluctantly why it would be.
Nintendo will be like, we have to protect our right to do nothing with this. Give it back.
I know. Just like if they release an official localization of Mother 3, even if they license the fan translation, which is incredible, and then release that in some form, I will buy it, no questions asked. Like
the one of the main creators of the fan translation even said, "I'll give you this translation for free if you release this game."
Yeah, it's such a good game. I don't know why it took me so long to finally get back on it and play it, but y'all should play it if you want to feel really sad and also laugh a lot. And I highly, highly recommend putting something inappropriate as your favorite food at the beginning of the game, because
Oh, right.
oh, the laughs.
I've seen that.
Oh, the
Yeah,
laughs.
I've seen your tweets about that, but I don't think we can say what word you
No, we
chose
don't
on this podcast.
The correct answer is balls.
Fantastic.
That works equally well, actually.
Well, now that you said it,
Well, there
Oh,
it is.
A ghost burped on me, and it smelled like rotten balls.
That's fantastic, guys.
Monkey
You guys-
dances and man gypsies and skinhead and neckbeard. That game's great.
You guys think there's any chance of Mother 3 like officially coming out?
I think there is.
I think a little bit more so now, just because of the release of Earthbound Beginnings, and then they were also hyping up Lucas a lot as a Smash DLC character.
Mm-hmm.
So now is like an okay time. It's not like Mother 3 has been irrelevant completely as of late, you know? Like, it's kind of come back into the spotlight, at least a little bit.
I actually wonder if they're not planning on either bundling them or remaking Mother 3 and releasing it as like a 3DS title.
I would scream in the best way. Oh my
Which
god.
would be weird though, because then they would have not re-released Earthbound. So I don't know. Maybe they would do a bundle with all three or something.
There's
Well,
been talk. Go ahead.
They have the Mother 1 and 2 GBA game in Japan, so I don't see why they couldn't do like a Mother 2 and 3 or Mother 1, 2, and 3 bundle.
Yeah.
oh, but that reminds me of like Xenosaga Episode 1 and 2 on DS that we never got.
Yeah, but I mean, at least these are like the same games. They're not remakes or reimaginings. So
There was some scuttlebutt, speaking of bundling games, there's been a little rumor going around that we might get the 2 Fire Emblem games coming out in a bundle.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think that's the way they're going to have to do it.
It's
well, they
bundling.
already have separate listings for both of them on retailers and stuff.
Right, but I think they're going to do a bundle. Like, I think both games are $40. I think they'll probably do a bundle for like maybe 60 or 70.
Oh, you mean like in
I thought
addition.
I thought that was confirmed already, but I could be, maybe I'm thinking of a bundle with the DLC, because there's a I mean,
There's a third scenario.
yeah, there's a third scenario that I thought came in certain bundles, but I might be imagining that. But yeah, the way that it's structured, a bundle of multiple scenarios or both games would make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. I think we'll see that. I'm going to give that game a shot. I'm going to turn my brain off and just enjoy Fire Emblem for what it is and not try to play it like a tactics game.
Do it, Rob.
I really liked. I loved the characters, but I got so fed up because it was like normal was way too easy, and then hard just turned it into a grind fest. Like
No,
that's,
I don't agree with that. I mean, like
I think hard is
same-
fine, but I agree that normal
yeah.
is easy and lunatic is impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Lunatic. I couldn't remember what the name
But
of the
all
highest difficulty was, but that thing is don't play Lunatic.
but all I did when I played it on hard was like, wow, this game is a hell of a lot harder. I'm just going to grind more, and that just means I'm going to play more of it and destroy it.
That's
Like-
an RPG.
I was just destroying it the exact same way that I was doing it. It was just taking longer.
Well, you can play it. The nice thing is you can play the Black Kingdom in this upcoming one, and that you can't grind.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Yeah, see, you might like the older Fire Emblems or Black Kingdom better, Rob, because those are ones where you cannot grind. Awakening is the first one you can really grind in.
Right, and that just made the game. I don't know. Like I started to get like, okay, instead of taking 1 hour to grind, I'm just going to take 2 hours to grind on hard mode. Huh.
But on the other hand, that grinding probably also is part of the reason that Awakening sold so well.
Probably.
Because it made it more accessible.
Because you
and-
can end up screwed in those old Fire Emblem games. Like, wow, I'm not going to be able to beat this fight. That sounds fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean that's one of
yeah,
my favorite things, honestly. Like the limited
Yeah.
experience, and experience being a resource that you have to manage. But
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the things I like about it, too.
I don't know. I loved all the characters. I loved making babies. I should
Oh, and
probably-
Fire Emblem.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Yeah,
popular
Fire
pastime
Emblem.
for a lot of
Yeah,
people.
Fire Emblem. No, I'm not announcing anything on the show, guys. I'm not gonna have our RPG fan baby. It's
I
not
mean,
gonna
there's a
happen.
chance.
I don't know. I'm not having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
I'm not having this conversation right now. All right, who else has games to talk about?
I've been playing the new King's Quest. Did I talk about that last time?
No, you didn't. I want to hear about King's Quest.
So I discovered on the internet recently that there is this group of people, for example, like at Rock Paper Shotgun and Yahtzee, Ben Croshaw, who apparently have decided that the old King's Quest games are terrible because they like LucasArts games. And for those of you not aware, LucasArts old adventure games were very story heavy. There were very few fail states in them. There was not a lot of dying and failing, which you could argue is, better design. But I grew up with King's Quest. There's fail states in that, and it's a little obtuse. But so there have been some reviews of the new King's Quest that talk about how it's like the old ones and it's terrible, and you just walk around clicking on stuff and solving puzzles, and it's terrible. And it sort of amuses me that that's a complaint because that's what it's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be an adventure game, right?
Yeah, and people have gotten so inured by Telltale style, which is basically not even gameplay. It's just walk around, click on hotspots, and pursue the story, which is fine. But it's why I've never been quite as enamored of Telltale's games as I think the average person is, because they're about as much of a game as Heavy Rain is a game, possibly even less.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was going to be my next argument, but you made it for me.
So and there's plenty of room for that because a visual novel is the same thing. It's just dialogue, and there's room for that, and I think that's great. But King's Quest is not trying to be early reports made it look like it was going to be a Telltale game, but it's actually quite different. So the new King's Quest, to start off with, I like it a lot. It is sort of not really a reboot because it's the same characters, but it's all the framing narrative is that King Graham, voiced by Christopher Lloyd to perfection, is
He's
old
awesome.
and telling his granddaughter tales of when he was a knight. And the first story he tells is the intro to the game, which is him getting the magic mirror, which is an old thing you did in King's Quest 1 from a dragon. Or no, King's Quest 2. Or 1, I can't remember. I don't know. But so the intro plays a little bit like a Telltale game where it's very scripted, very linear, and it's basically just there to sort of teach you how to play the game. The graphics are good. There are sequences that are basically QuickTime events, but they're not. It's not like a QuickTime event like this came out of nowhere. It's like, hey, I fell into a waterfall and now I'm avoiding rocks. But they're sort of sparingly used. So the intro of the game is polarizing. I think it's fine, but the game really begins with a second story after you do this intro where he's sort of telling the story back to his granddaughter, and he fills in as the narrator that the series has always had. And so once the game actually starts, you're a really young King Graham before he became king, and you're in a tournament, and basically you are dropped into the kingdom, Daventry, and it's an old school, it's basically, a direct control point-and-click adventure game with no fail states. Like you can't do like in old King's Quest 5, there was a quest where, or a sequence where you had to meet a fortune teller, and you could pay her with a gold coin you find or a golden needle you find. And if you pay her with the golden needle, you cannot beat the game because you need that for something later. So there were a lot of states in the old King's Quest games where you could not be able to progress and have to start over if you didn't make a lot of saves. There's nothing like that in the new one. There is still character death, and they use it the way they did before, where it's, in the old King's Quest, you would die in the game, and they would make like a joke or a pun about how you died and like call you stupid or something. The new one, if you die, all that happens is you get a brief piece of dialogue where Graham makes a joke or something, or he's like, obviously that's not what happened because I'm here. And then it just reloads you in that area. So it cuts out a lot of the potential for I lost progress, all of it really. But even though it looks different and feels different when you're moving around, I really think it plays a lot like a very refined version of the old walk around, get inventory items, talk to people, and solve puzzles King's Quest games. Tonally, I think it's very it's sort of a little bit more humorous than the old ones, but it definitely gets the same sort of wry fairy tale thing going on. It's a lot like The Princess Bride, I would say, in terms of tone.
That sounds good to me.
The writing is outstanding. It's funny. It's charming. Because the series is known for bad puns, but what they've done is that not all the characters tell bad puns. Graham just tells them as he's narrating, And so his granddaughter, like he'll tell a bad pun and she'll be like, "Oh my God, no." So they've sort of they're aware that the punning is sort of a quirk of the character, and they make it really charming. And like there are a lot of like references to old adventure game tropes. Like you get a hatchet, and Graham is like, "Oh God, I picked up a hatchet," and the granddaughter's like, "Oh, you used it on everything," and he's like, "No, I didn't use it on everything." And every time if you try to use the hatchet on something for a puzzle, she's like, "And then you cut it with the hatchet," and he's like, "No, I didn't do that. No, I didn't." And if you do it enough times, there's eventually a puzzle where he goes, "And then I stuck the hatchet in the wood and never picked it up again ever because I didn't need it anymore." So they sort of make fun of a lot of old tropes of adventure games where, if you get a knife or something that's too good that could solve every puzzle, it's like, why doesn't this solve every puzzle? So they sort of make fun of that. There aren't quite as many items as your average King's Quest game, the old ones. There's still a fair number. Like, you can have, 6, 7, 8 items, but there's no sort of like obtuse inventory combination puzzles.
Might be better though, yeah.
My nostalgia tells me I miss that, but like the old games are so obtuse in terms of sometimes what you would have to combine to do that this one there's more logic to it. There are still some really out there puzzle solutions, but I honestly feel like that's part of the charm, is that you do something silly. What's really cool about it is that even while it plays, as an inventory based, like, walk around adventure game with puzzles, there's a lot of solutions to every puzzle, and the game is sort of non-linear in that, like, you could pursue a lot of different avenues of resolving issues, and that, there are little, jokes later that pop up if you did things a certain way. Like, as an example, there's a picnic basket set up in a really picturesque scene with some bees above it, and there's fruit right next to the bees that you need. You could just shake the tree and all the fruit comes down, and so do the bees, and it lands on the picnic table. There's nobody there, so you're like, all right, whatever. I take the fruit and I walk away. But like way later in the storyline, you meet a character and he's covered in bee stings, and he's like, yeah, my date went really bad recently. I got stung by bees. There's a lot of ways to get the fruit that you need, and the sequencing of the game is really cool because you can sort of, if you opt to solve a puzzle one way early on, you might still solve the other puzzle that's in your face later on, but for a different reason. So it seems like it's really replayable. I haven't quite finished it yet, but I don't want to talk, too over long about it, other than to say that I think if you are open-minded and like the old games, you'll enjoy this one. It looks different, it feels a little different, but overall, the experience of playing it is, to me, what I remember it was before. It's funny, it's charming. There's, sincere moments, there's cheesy moments. It's just a fun game.
Well, I think the comment about like the modern stuff in it and kind of the lack of some of the more obtuse stuff, you said that there's still some of that in there. That's what really turned me off to Shadowgate. Was like I wanted to really like Shadowgate, but that plays like such an old school game that it felt creaky. And I started to really get frustrated, like, if I don't click on everything in this room over and over again, and I can't even tell some of the stuff I can click on and rub stuff against it, I'm not going to make it. And then the game is on a timer. So every time I rub something, it's taking a turn that might potentially kill me.
Yeah, so there's none of that in this one. And again, King's Quest never had like a time limit or anything like that, but it did have like, if you use the wrong item on this puzzle, it will work, but in 2 hours, you will be unable to solve a puzzle. There's none of that in this. You cannot possibly fail. I would say, in my opinion, there's just the right amount of like sort of quirky solutions to stuff, while there's still plenty of very clear, I know what I need to do here, but the question is, how do I do it?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very respectful of its old material and even referential and sometimes joking about it. But it's modern enough that it doesn't get in the way of the player, and maybe is more accessible than those old games as well.
Yeah, definitely more accessible. I would say I don't envy the task they had, but I think they did it admirably. As a fan of the old ones, I acknowledge that there's no way you could make a game like King's Quest 6 anymore, because it would be too much for most people. This one, I think, is a good concession to both. They haven't watered anything down. They've just sort of built a different style that feels spiritually like the old ones. And it is very like there are a ton of references to the old games, like the inventory item when you pick stuff up, the same, it's the same sound effect from King's Quest 6. There's a ton of audio and musical cues that are from the old games or that call back to the old games. There's lots of jokes and references to stuff that's going, like, since Graham is young in the game, they make a lot of jokes that will apply in the future of his life that you would only know if you've played the other games. And the one of the best jokes in the entire game, you have to get these rabbits or these squirrels away from a pumpkin because you're trying to pick it up and they keep like jumping on you when you do. When you finally scare the squirrels away, you pick it up and the granddaughter goes, "Will the squirrels remember that?" And Graham goes, "Oh, the squirrels will definitely remember that." So
See, I like that.
they poke a lot of they don't they're not mocking, but they poke a lot of fun at like Telltale's adventure games. So it's very very self-aware and modern and even anachronistic in some of the dialogue, but that's part of that series, so it works well. This is a series whose second game was medieval and took place in a castle and a fairy tale countryside and had the Batmobile driving around. So it fits the tone quite well. And the voice acting is incredibly good.
So Jesse, how would that work out in legal terms with the Batmobile driving around in a King's Quest game today?
If it's parody,
it'd be. What's that, Caitlin?
If they have the rights to it.
Yeah, if they license it, right, there's no problem. You can always buy the rights. Honestly, it would probably have to go to a court to figure that out, which is one of the problems with copyright. It's like you got to have a court kind of sort everything out for you. Yeah. It's hard to know the rights in advance.
It's really nebulous.
But yeah, I think I think it's very accessible and it's very charming. And some people have complained that it's too Princess Bride compared to the old ones, and I could see that, but that's not something I'm willing to get upset about.
That's a selling point as far
I would agree.
I think it's pretty great. And it's even got Wallace Shawn in it as a character, so it really feels Princess Bride-y.
So would you say that for someone who's never played any of the old King's Quest, is this a good game to wet your teeth on?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a good game on its own. I don't think you need any nostalgia for the old ones because the nostalgia is very subtle. It's there and it makes you happy when you see it and it fits well. Like they refer to other kingdoms that you don't go to in this game that are referred to in the other series. So it's clear that they understood that they had to make a new game, not a game that depended on the old ones for its existence.
All right. I'm interested in it, but I think I'm probably going to do this the same way I do the other the Telltale games, which is to wait until there's more episodes available. I don't like waiting for content. I know you disagree with me on that, but
well, no, in Telltale, I appreciate your position. In this one, they're calling them chapters, and I wouldn't say it's episodic because the storyline completes in this game.
Okay.
Everyone has its own story from Graham's past. So like this one is just how he became a knight, and like it has a resolution and it ends. And it's also quite a bit longer than your average Telltale game. I mean, I have about 8 hours on it. And I would say probably, you're going to get 7 or 8 hours out of this episode.
Wow,
so,
and this is 1 out of 5 chapters, like a Telltale game?
Wow.
Or no, 4 chapters and then or 4 or 5 and then an epilogue.
That's pretty respectable.
That's pretty meaty if the other ones are about the same length and in level of involvement than the first one,
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, it's hard for me to sort of get into a Telltale game sometimes because either I'm playing one chapter, which is very short and very I finished it in one sitting, and then it's months before I play another one, or it's I marathon the whole series, and it's just like you don't get too attached to any one location or any one set of objects or puzzles or scenarios because it's going to be gone so quickly. Whereas here, you really have the time to you go into Daventry, and there's a lot of different places to explore. Like, I was expecting 4 or 5 screens Back to the Future style, the Back to the Future adventure game.
Right.
But it's not really like that at all. It's very much like there's about 20, 25 places you can go, and more keep opening up. It's very big. So I would say it does not feel like an episodic game.
But by extension, do we know when episode 2 is coming out? Because if it's every 6 months or every year, it would still feel like really separate chapters that Rob might not prefer to experience them like that far apart.
I think they said a month or 2. Something about the late summer or September or something. But yeah, since they're all discrete stories, it's better to think maybe they're all sort of like old King's Quest games where they're the same character in a different situation. But I don't know what it's gonna. It sort of depends on where they go with the next one.
But it sounds like you like it.
I definitely do. I think it's great. it's not perfect, but it's what it needs to be, I think.
Well, it's definitely a franchise that hadn't had an entry in how long?
I think almost 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of awesome that they got a chance to do this.
Yeah, I think 1998 was the last one, Mask of Eternity, which was not very much like the other ones anyway. Yeah, if you have, I would say I'd recommend it to basically anybody who enjoys something that's lighthearted and fun, but also occasionally heartfelt.
So haters are gonna hate, but you like it.
Yeah, well, I think the problem is any reboot of an old series, you get the people who were young kids when they played the old ones, and now everything that's different is terrible and it sucks. And why would they do this, even though there's only 10 of us?
Right.
Those people tend to be the loudest on the internet.
Yeah,
and
that's
not the ones that make money for games.
That is true.
Mhm.
Well, what else do we have to talk about?
The Kingdom Hearts panel is accidentally flashed a slideshow. It hasn't started yet, but apparently they showed. So it's a Disney Interactive panel, and apparently they accidentally played their slideshow, and people caught shots of Kingdom Hearts slides. So they're saying something about Kingdom Hearts. So
I know they're gonna
to-
say something.
So,
Mike, you were going to say something about the Trails in the Sky second chapter thing?
exactly. On Friday, Xseed put a second post on their Trails in the Sky localization blog. It's the first one they had done in something like a month and a half or 2 months. And as a fan who would love to play Trails in the Sky second chapter as soon as possible, it was really a bummer because the whole post was about how buggy and difficult the localization process has been.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
I mean, you probably heard the story of several weeks ago how there were so many lines of code in their master document that it crashed two computers. It's about 90,000 lines, which is 3 times as many as they had for Story of Seasons earlier this year. And just it's a disaster. There's words that are randomly enlarging, doors that are bright blue but can't be opened. Invisible.
Glowing balls coming out of people's backsides.
Yes,
Well,
invisible enemies, visible enemies that aren't there, just all kinds of crazy stuff. So they have their internal Q&A studio, and they hired a second Q&A studio to do nothing but work on cleaning that game up. But it's uncertain when it'll be ready. But they are dedicated to finishing it, thank goodness.
Yeah, and it's been delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, and they haven't given a hard release date for a long time. And it's so, on one hand, like I commend them for putting all of that out there and for explaining why it's taking so long and talking about the problems that they're having in depth. On the other hand, it just sucks as somebody who wants the game to be out. It's like I was really bummed reading that article because at the end of it, it was like, it's been a long few months and just maybe in a couple more months we'll be able to finally release it. And it's like, really? A couple more months? Ugh.
And before all of this, I mean, I don't know if this was discussed on the podcast, but one of the people at Carpe Fulgur, the localization group that was working alongside Xseed, had some very serious personal problems earlier this year that set back the translation of the game several months. So this game it's been through localization hell, and I'm sure that Xseed would love for it to be finished as
Right,
soon as
yeah.
possible. But
Like, more than anything, I wish for the wellness of all the people working on the project, and I would never put the game before anybody's mental or physical well-being. It's just frustrating, as like the game.
Yeah, I wasn't implying that either. It's just
I know you were.
I just wanted to make it clear that this game has had some difficulties in the localization process, but hopefully that everyone will make it through safe and sane, and we'll be playing this eventually.
In other words, when this game comes out, you better buy it.
I really hope so. Yeah.
I think it's extremely likely that we get Trails of Cold Steel Part 1 before Trails in the Sky Part 2.
Yeah, and before they had said that they fully intended on releasing second chapter before Cold Steel, but
yeah,
it's going to be weird because we're going to technically be playing the 6th game in the series before the second one ever comes out.
And I know that one of the playable characters in because Cold Steel takes place in a military academy, and one of the main characters in Trails in the Sky is like is a nobleman that's like the principal of the military academy. So guess what? He survives that game. Minor spoiler.
It's good to know these things.
Yeah, but it's really a mess. I'd really like to be able to play that game, but looks like it's not in the cards in the immediate future.
Yeah, I was just Googling the release date the other day, like kind of hoping it would be it would be out or there'd be some news, but
Yeah, so it looks like we've got a couple more months to go. They initially projected summer. Well, I mean, their most recent projection was just summer. And I had hoped it would be out before the semester started so I could really dig in. But, I mean, it's all me. It has to suit my schedule. Oh. No, but seriously, like, I actually hope it
Come on,
comes
man.
out
This
this
isn't
year.
Reddit.
I know, right? So this year, maybe we'll get. They've actually been doing voice recording for Trails of Cold Steel, and they just wrapped that up after a month of doing that. And I guess it went really well, according to their Twitter and the people I follow from Xseed, like their independent Twitters. They said it's been a lot of fun, and they're really happy with how the voice work turned out for the dub. So we'll get Trails this year. I mean, if you like your traditional RPGs, then you'll be satisfied.
All
But
right.
just not second chapter.
Okay, what else do we have? Or are we ready to start moving on into the news?
I don't really. Again, I'm playing the same stuff for old games, so I don't really have any like new stuff to talk about.
There
Okay.
was some news about the game that you and I are currently playing right now, Robert. As in this second.
Oh, you want to talk about Diablo, huh?
It won't be long.
I am not going to stop you.
All right, they're starting season 4 of Diablo play. They're adding something called the Kanai Cube, which is similar to the Horadric Cube, and it's named after a deceased Blizzard employee, Kevin Kanai. And you're going to be able to basically farm legendary items and equip their affixes onto new equipment slots, which sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Or,
So yeah,
or-
like
so you won't. Everyone won't need a Ring of Royal Grandeur if they want multiple set bonuses. You can just sacrifice a ring and then equip that legendary bonus. Or the same
Yeah.
thing for items like the Furnace, or that crazy monk Daibo that gives you double attack speed.
well, I think it's not. You don't put it on an item. You have
Yeah,
3 new
yes.
slots for passive abilities.
Yeah, you
that-
sacrifice the item and then you get that ability for a slot.
Yeah, so like it's going to basically explode build options because you're going to be able. You won't have to like, you have your set items and you don't have to unequip or break your set in order to get some really great effect from a weapon. In other words, it's like they're adding 3 new torment level of difficulties, like 3 harder difficulties,
I thought
because
it was 7. I thought they're going up to 10.
No, it's. I think they're going up to 10, so they're adding
Yeah.
5 levels of torment because
There's
they are
already 6.
insane.
well, because now you're with these new abilities, your damage is going to go up exponentially. You're going to go from 2 million damage to 10 million. So they have to add. They're adding new items. The usual stuff. It's new legendaries, new sets. They're tweaking effects, changing a few skills. They're adding a new area to the game. It's just at this point, if you are hating on Diablo 3, you have not played the game in 3 years.
Yeah, and
It's
also
not,
they're
it's not Diablo 2, but I'm having probably more fun now with it than I did with Diablo 2.
I would agree.
I think Torchlight 2 is a better Diablo 2, and Diablo 3 is a totally new thing that's better than Torchlight 2. And I say this as someone that adores Torchlight 2.
No, yeah, absolutely. Diablo 2 is a great game, and Torchlight 2 is a great retread of similar ground. So if you just cannot handle a new style of action RPG, clicky, that's totally fine. You can play Torchlight. Diablo 3, and we've been saying this since the get-go. This is not meant to be Diablo 2. This
Exactly.
is a new game. It was broken when it came out, and it was fun, sort of, but it is.
Well, I think it was
better now. They keep making it better. It's just super fun to play. It feels good, and there's so much build diversity now with none of the grindy, oh, I screwed up my character, I better start a new one type of thing.
Yeah, it had problems when it came out, but it was still a good game. Like, I'm not going to revisionist history the game. I loved it. But it has just gotten ridiculous now. Like, this game is just stupid nuts now.
Yeah,
it's
I'm almost
fun.
on the flip side. I didn't like it as much without the expansion, and was hesitant to get the expansion. But when I finally did a month or 2 ago, it's been amazing. So yeah, it's my loot grind item game of choice for maybe forever. I don't know.
Sounds like me in Final Fantasy 14.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I've got I play every season for about 50 hours and I stop, but then every season comes around and I've started new characters and I never do that. And it's just fun to level up, and then it's fun to hunt for rare items because you just get so strong and you're like, you start out, you're like poking people and you can't do anything, and then you're warping around doing 10,000% damage, killing everything on screen in like a matter of seconds. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Oh, and
it's
they also announced some things like crossover content with Heroes of the Storm, Blizzard's MOBA, and in fact, I think there's items named after Heroes of the Storm characters.
Oh, really? I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, like there's gonna be a Vala's crossbow and a
cool.
and I think a knife named after Nazibo, like things like that. But and if you get to level 70 in season 4, you get Diablo for free in Heroes of the Storm.
Really?
Yeah, and just
Oh,
things
that's
like
nice.
that. Because normally Diablo is like $6 paying money or 7,000 gold playing, just getting a lot of gold in Heroes. But there's a lot of little crossover things they're planning. They got the Blizzard machine going. Diablo 3 is really fun.
It is really fun, and I think, Steven, you're 100% right. It is not Diablo 2, but you know what? That is okay. I am more than okay with that.
Again, I know a lot of I can hear the complaints in my head that people still have. Oh, it's required that I'm online. Every online game is like that now.
Yeah, it's an online game. That's what it is.
And I know people like to say Diablo 1 and 2 weren't online games, and you're absolutely right. I think Diablo 2 was meant to be played online. Diablo 3 is not an offline game. You can play the campaign, but Diablo 3 is not meant to be a game you play the campaign in. You go into adventure mode, you kill monsters 1,000 times over in sewers that turn into towers, and you get swords that light up the sky and blow things up.
Yep, and things blow up real pretty. I'm playing as a wizard right now, and good lord, Jeebus, that damage output is just ridiculous. Oh, I love this game.
I just killed a Rift Guardian with a Conduit Pylon, and I feel great about life right now.
It was funny, I was playing a little bit of Diablo 3 with the wife on console, and I was having a hard time as a demon hunter. Like, something really weird went on where, like, I ran into 2 elites early in the game, still on normal mode, hadn't even found any equipment yet, and I just could not kill them. I was like, what is going... Like, again, I just broke the game. I ran into a situation that on normal that I couldn't beat.
I don't understand you.
I don't either.
How do you work?
I'm just... I don't know how I break video games, dude. It just happens. Did I break any games at E3? I don't think I did.
I think the only thing I ever broke at E3 was Metal Gear Rising.
Yeah, but that's because it's not a very good game.
Shut up.
That's a great game.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's really not.
No, it really is.
It's another bad.
You don't know how to
Platinum
play
game.
it.
It's
No,
another
not
bad
at
Platinum
all.
game.
You're
You
full
are-
of
you are-
crap.
You are faulting the game for your inability to control
That
it.
camera is atrocious.
Not according to all the people who have no problem playing it.
Oh yeah, the same
do we
people
know if
that
there-
said that the Kingdom Hearts camera was great.
Nobody says that except for me.
I
Okay,
want
he's
them
got-
to make a Vanquish 2. I loved Vanquish.
I think I wanted to like Vanquish.
It's weird, but I think it's great. I love that.
I didn't play enough of it.
Played it all. Can't you like run and slide a lot?
Ooh.
I think
Ooh,
there's
I
a lot
got-
of smoking in that game, isn't there? Like the dude is always smoking.
He's like Dojima.
I just got a really dope amulet. Awesome.
Oh, we could-
Mara's-
We could just sit
Mara's
here
Politis-
talking about Diablo all day. Do we want to move into news?
Sure.
Can I really quickly go over?
No, Jesse, absolutely not.
I had my time and now I can't
Of
talk.
course you can. What do you want to talk about, sir?
Right, I went and played Bloodgate: Age of Alchemy at the DNA office, whatever. You know, this freemium mobile game.
Thing with the things.
Yeah, and it's basically Puzzle Fighter, but it's like fantasy and you can
Go on.
Yeah, so see, I got someone's attention. So it's like Puzzle Fighter, but with I don't know, what's that gems game? You
Jewel?
swipe, jewel,
Bejeweled?
bejeweled.
One of those.
Oh, so it's like a match 3 with Puzzle Fighter?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Puzzle Quest?
So
Maybe.
kind
Puzzle
of,
Quest is awesome.
sorta. Yeah, Puzzle Quest
I
is fun.
maybe it's Puzzle Quest. I never played Puzzle Quest.
Oh my gosh, Puzzle Quest is amazing. The first one.
Don't play the PSP version. That game's really bugged, but it's a really good game in general.
Okay. So the point is, it's this like fun little freemium puzzle quest, puzzle fighter thing. And it's actually pretty well executed. Like I was actually enjoying myself, connecting the swipes and hitting the bombs and doing the whatever, killing the monsters. But really, what I wanted to talk about was just, you can tell how they put all these components into the game just to monetize it, right? Because it's a freemium game, right? So and I'm talking to the guy and he's going like, "Oh, like this is so great. You can get keys from monster drops and then you can use them on these chests and you can unlock a chest and it'll have random items and like isn't this so cool that it'll have a random item drop out of the chest?" And I'm thinking like, "No, that's not
That
That's
sounds
not
like
cool.
Team Fortress 2 crates or Dota chests, and that's not appealing to me.
yeah,
Like
that's
a basic mechanic of a role-playing game. Like,
exactly." And one, it's hardly revolutionary, and two, it's very obvious that they're doing it so they can sell you, gems or whatever the in-game currency is. Yeah. So I don't know. It's fun, but it really just spoke to the problems that I have with freemium games and that whole revenue model.
Yeah, and it must be tough as a developer of that to have to go and talk to people and explain something that is not a feature, it's a money-making device, as if it's a feature. Like, it's sort of like that Adventure Time puzzle quest that should have printed money, and I'm sure it will, but it's literally like, my roommate was playing it, and, it's the kind of, mobile game where you get different characters and you need slots for your characters, and it, like, forces you to buy a character with the currency that costs actual money. Like they give you, we gave you some free currency, which we're going to force you to spend, and then we're going to force you to spend more of it on a character slot. What a great feature! It's the same problem I have with free-to-play MMOs, in that, unlike Final Fantasy XIV, they're not built to be a cohesive experience. They're built to be compartmentalized so they can monetize as much of it as possible.
Yeah, exactly. And I was a lot gentler on this in the preview, but it's like, just don't piss on me and tell me that it's raining. Right? Just be honest about it.
Jesse, that's like the most. That was harsh. Jesse got pissed.
No, you know what though? He's real talk right here. That is exactly what it is. Don't tell us you're giving us gold bars when it's boogers. My analogy, my metaphor wasn't.
Also apropos, yeah.
I would tend to agree.
I would prefer gold bars to boogers, and don't like having them misrepresented.
Although, on the other hand, I'd rather have boogers in my nose than gold bars.
Okay, sure.
It's hard to breathe, yeah.
Well, I mean, if you have to have something in your nose, I'm talking in the hypothetical that
Oh.
something must be in there.
You mean gold bars in your nose? Okay.
Yeah, I don't want someone to put a gold bar in my nose.
I'd rather have gold bars in front of me than boogers, but
I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
Boogers, man.
what are we ever talking about?
What are we doing?
Anyways, that's my soapbox. On to news.
News.
Well, this isn't really a news item, but I did want to point out that one of our editors, the fine Neil Chandran, is actually working on a lot of interviews with voice actors. And we just put up a feature where he interviewed Aaron Fitzgerald, who voiced characters like Chie from Persona 4 and Agnes from Bravely Default. So yeah, there's a cool interview up if you want to get a little glimpse at how she gets into character for her roles and just generally why she's a cool person. You can check that out. You can go to the features section of RPGFan.com, and right now it's still in our sidebar with a cute little illustration. So I would advise you to check that out. And we also have some more voice actor interviews coming up in the near future.
Cool.
So yay!
Good job on that, Neil.
Yeah, it's really cool to see him reaching out and getting some new and unique coverage for us. Plus, I'm one of those people where I prefer dubs when they're done well. I don't know why I'm going through puberty today. I really like dubs when they're
Please
done
don't tell
well.
my boss I'm not cleaning the urinals at the movie theater.
Oh,
you're
gee,
embarrassing me.
he's gonna be really upset with me.
He's gonna put my hands in the deep fryer.
Ooh, American Horror Story Season 3.
This is getting messed up.
Yeah.
Oh
so,
God, that was an American Horror Story. Oh, why would you bring that up
right?
again?
No, I thought it was in The Simpsons.
Well, that too.
No, there's a character in American Horror Story Season 3 who's like a living voodoo doll, so she puts her hand in a deep fryer to deep fry some
Did
bits.
you like season 3? I really liked season 3.
I like it, but I don't think it was the best. I would still rank them 2 being the absolute best.
What?
Yeah, by far.
Really?
Yeah, 2 is the very, very best.
Oh, I
Then-
hated 2 so
then
much.
3, then 3, then 1, then 4. 4 is just the worst. Blech.
I didn't really get into 4. Jackie and I could not finish, but I did not like 2 at all. I
Really?
found 2 to be a combination of like, Nazi body horror and aliens, and was like, what is going on here? This
But I
is,
Go
like that.
on.
So
All right.
it was really weird. I
Yeah.
really like 3 though, because it was like evil X-Men, and I like that.
I think 3 falls apart at the end, but it's like, hey, that's your favorite phrase, Rob. It just falls apart at the end,
That too much stuff falls apart at the end. That's the
like
problem.
a pork roast in a crock pot. Just
Mm.
Rockpot? What?
The
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts presentation is
Delicious.
starting now.
Oh
cook
God,
pork in a
Steven.
crock pot.
Oh,
It gets all
man.
tender and falls off the
Steven,
bone.
just calm down.
Yeah, you want
That's a good
pork to
falling
like
apart.
practically melt in your mouth,
Oh man, are we talking about pork? Like
right?
Yeah.
Mm.
He is from the South, ladies and gentlemen. He loves pork.
Welcome
not
to
from
New
the
Pork
South.
City.
Well, you lived in the South for a long time. Shut up! Quiet you.
South Carolina counts as the South, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
of course it
does.
does.
Yeah, but I'm not from there. I'm from Massachusetts.
South Carolina is the South.
South Carolina is one of my least favorite states. Sorry if you live there.
Did they secede? Yes,
Yeah.
they are the South.
Well, okay,
Did
look,
they
I live.
succeed? Yes. Did they succeed? No.
And it's
look,
halftime.
I live in a state that is south of the Mason-Dixon line, but I am definitely north of the imaginary sweet tea line. So I'm in a weird like limbo of southernness that's hard to explain.
There's a sweet tea line in a circle around my body at all times.
Right.
It just keeps getting amazing.
So I can't buy Sun Drop. I don't get sweet tea automatically at restaurants, but technically I was in a state that seceded from the Union, and that's kind of weird and embarrassing.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't secede.
I won't. Okay, look, we learned our lesson. Maybe.
And it's halftime. Haven't you been
Mhm.
listening to Bobby Jindal? Okay, let's move on.
Oh,
Let's
boy.
move on to news.
Let's please
Wow.
not talk about them.
Moving on. I don't know if you discussed this on the last podcast at all, but so TriAce announced Exist Archive, which is basically
Mhm.
like a sci-fi Valkyrie profile. I mean, it's got the same basic gameplay structure. It's got like a side scroll. You've got side scrolling dungeons. You have 4 character battles where each character acts independently. Like, it looks really cool. It's
Yeah.
basically
Yeah,
like
it
a
does.
And you
Lost
also like
Souls and... Go ahead.
sorry, but you also send like a character back to the other planet. Or you like have to choose which character to send to the other side every
Yeah.
chapter. So
So this is very
Yeah.
much just Valkyrie profile with a different theme.
I'm not a huge Valkyrie profile fan. Not that I dislike it. I played it sort of after its time, and I feel like it hasn't aged super well. It's a little obtuse, but like I'm really excited for this Exist Archive, and not least of which because it has Motoi Sakuraba, and all the sample music has Sakuraba able to do his thing rather than Sakuraba on Tales games.
Yeah, exactly. I think Sakuraba flourishes
oh,
when he's not
yeah.
doing Tales soundtracks.
But
Yeah,
no.
it's great. It's the samples are great. The art style, I love it. Like it's the sort of cutesy chibi look, but without everybody having huge exposed boobs all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was nervous when I heard the first article saying that the game was going to have a chibi style, and I was like, no.
And then they were like,
But-
I think it's the Love Plus artist that's doing it. So I was like, oh boy, boobs confirmed.
But it's actually it looks fine. Like it looks like chibi is okay if it's not weirdly sexualized chibi.
yeah, and you know if you like that, that's fine too. But I don't. Good for you, not for me.
I don't think it's fine that you like
At
that.
least the environment.
There are
You
too
said-
many dungeon crawlers with weirdly sexualized chibi characters
Oh my
nowadays.
God.
It
So-
creeps me out a little
It's like part of the genre at this point. It drives me nuts. That's why I like
Yeah.
History and Odyssey so much.
Like I wish they could just exist as a thing and not be taking over what a quote unquote standard RPG is like these days. I don't know why that's the norm suddenly.
Yeah, well, it's like the difference between, although not that Xenoblade doesn't have Charlotte, but like,
Well, right.
you know, it's the difference between a game that is like, I'm going to tell you a story, I have good art style and good graphics, and I'm not going to try to make an additional selling point, giant boobs just because.
And it also is different when there's one character that's an annoying chibi or weirdly sexualized, where it as opposed to where it pervades the entire art style and just makes you feel gross, like reading an article about the game.
Yeah, and you know, not to bring up one of my favorite punching bags lately, but Dungeon Travelers 2, like,
Ugh.
I've seen 3 screenshots of that game, and I'm just like, is this game known because it's a good game or because it has huge boobs on young girls?
Yeah, just let it be like the boob game. It doesn't.
Yeah, like, don't, like, it's like...
Now
Senran
too many games
Kagura.
are the boob game.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
like-
Omega Labyrinth. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
Omega Labyrinth, that
that's
new
what we're referencing. Yeah.
new roguelike RPG, they they must have chosen Omega because of the Greek symbol. So that
Yeah.
if you go to the website, like it's the Greek symbol is basically outlining her boobs.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's just a shame.
Yeah.
That's the game where some of the mechanics include like there's
Yeah.
your breasts get bigger as you go through the dungeons, and then
Yes.
you do like a chest bursting attack. You
Chest-
appraise items by putting them between the girls' breasts.
To be fair, that is how I figure out prices at Target. All right, I'm just
Caitlin-
saying.
Rating system.
Well, that's
like-
yeah.
Caitlin,
Jackie
I-
has that available. So
Jackie has that system available. I'm sorry. It just that's terrible. I'm really sorry about
And then
it.
I think the thing that really made me go ugh was like you can give the girls in the game like a pheromone or something that puts them in a quote unquote excited state, and then you
Oh,
can do a
boy.
touch mini game with them. Like
Oh boy.
that's just like it's fine to have things that are sexual and even pornographic. Like that's okay.
Yeah,
but
there's
I
a
feel
there's a
like,
time and place for those.
Well, no,
Yeah.
but like not even that. But just tell me that's what your game's point is. Like Jesse,
Yeah.
said, don't pee on me and tell me it's raining. Like
That's
I'm
nonsense.
I'm
Just
not.
gonna keep going back to that.
I've been pretty vocal with not being a huge fan of a lot of Xseed's project choices lately, with the Trails games being
No,
the
me
exception.
neither.
You know, they do the pandery game to fund the real games, and I know that sounds incredibly elitist of me, but fine, it's my opinion. Shut
Mhm.
If it gets us Tokyo Xanadu and East 8 in
Exactly.
the next 2 years, then maybe I'm okay with it.
But at least Xseed is not trying to tell you that Senran Kagura is some incredible action RPG with deep
Well,
mechanics that are great.
Some of the people who work for Exceed will actually argue that they are.
That's true. Some
Super
will,
deep.
and that's that's their opinion. That's you should be passionate in the product you're working on. I think that's absolutely true. But a lot of like the Xseed blog, they will say, yeah, check it out. Here's a picture of a girl with huge boobs and they're bouncing. Boob physics. And I'm like, all right, at least I have no interest in that.
Right.
But they're not lying and telling me it's some incredible game
Right.
when
I would
the
much
selling point is boobs.
I would appreciate the honesty really more than anything, and I feel like games like Omega Labyrinth are trying to put up this facade like they're something that they're not, and that's what really bugs me about it.
It sounds like you guys want honest boobs.
I mean, I personally don't want the
Honest
boobs at all.
boobs are what I want.
Like that's fine. That's fine that they're there. I have nothing against that. It's just also actually something I do legitimately have a problem with is the fact that all the girls are totally underage looking. Like I don't
Yeah,
care if
that's
you tell
the
me
problem.
that she's
But
18.
Derek, they're aged
She-
up. They're actually ancient beings.
She's clearly not 18. Right, like, okay, she's 300
I
years
hate
old, but
that
she has
argument.
the body of a 12-year-old. Look at her flat breasts. Like, what? Like, sorry, no.
I absolutely despise the lore argument, and I've seen it made by a lot of people, even people in the industry, where it's like, well, you see, actually, she's 900 years old, so it's totally okay. It's like, no, she is. This is I can't swear on this podcast.
No,
this is a
don't do
BS
that.
excuse. This is an absolute BS emphasis excuse so you can show underage boobs. So just shut up.
If you put that in front of a judge, they won't agree with the lower argument. So
No,
it's
it's
BS.
It's a stupid misdirection, redirection tactic. It's nonsense, and it's unacceptable.
I don't need kiddie porn in my dungeon crawlers. Like, end of story. If
Yeah.
you want to have a sexy, like, porno dungeon crawler, that's fine. Just don't lie about what it is and don't put up a front like it's something else.
Yeah,
And also, I just don't want that to be the mainstream thing, or not mainstream, but I
Yeah.
don't want that to be the baseline experience for RPGs, because that's what it's becoming. It feels like.
yeah, no, I completely agree, Derek. I made this, and when I was playing Xenoblade like a couple months ago and finishing it, like I kept tweeting, I'm like, these are the JRPGs I want to play, where there's, and this is biased, but where there's integrity behind how it's designed. It's not like, well, we made some still anime shots, and that's all the cutscenes, and you're gonna roam a dungeon with one wall per set, and there's 5 dungeons, and turn-based combat with items and special skills and a skill tree, and giant boobs everywhere. Like that's so many JRPGs now, and I don't want that to be the norm.
Yeah.
God, yeah, and covering those for news is just right because you have
That
to
was the
try
argument
and
I
like,
made. That was the argument I made. I was like, I don't want to cover these anymore.
Sorry to interject, but Square Enix USA during this Kingdom Hearts, this Disney Interactive presentation, just tweeted that new info is coming. So I'm assuming that within moments there's going to be something new for Kingdom
Please look forward to it.
Live news.
Hearts. Oh no, it'll be like the 15 stream. We have decided on a release date.
Please look forward to it.
We have decided on the announcement date for the announcement of the release date.
But we're not
Oh,
telling
boy.
you.
And speaking of which, who cares about Dragon Quest? Not you guys. All right, we're not going to talk about it.
Well, I mean, look,
Well-
it's at the Disney trade show, so they're
Yeah.
not gonna. I mean, that's a little unfair, but I mean, PAX is in a week and a half or so. TGS is in about a month.
Are you
So-
guys? Am I the only one? I know Steven's going to argue with me right now and say that I'm just predisposed to hating J.J. Abrams and Star Wars, but hear me out right now.
You are, so go ahead.
Is anybody else just feeling a little bit of Star Wars fatigue already, and we don't even have one of these goddamn movies out yet?
Yeah, they just announced
no, I'm
two
not
Star
feeling it.
Wars theme parks. That's bananas.
I think it's all fantastic, to be honest. We have been wanting for decades to have more extended universe Star Wars material, and now we have it, and people are complaining.
I'm
yes,
not
I have not
complaining.
been arguing for that.
Well,
I have not.
because the EU is arguably more interesting than the main films themselves.
That is fair.
Certainly
That's fair.
the prequel trilogy. And like people are like, oh, there's so many spin-offs, and I'm like, that's the glory of this. This world supports that sort of thing. Like, would I have gone with a Han Solo film up front? No. But Rogue One looks awesome. I'm more excited for Rogue One than Episode 7. Because it's a different... think about it in Marvel terms, where Marvel is experimenting with different genres within superhero movie. You have, like, Ant-Man as a heist film. You have Guardians of the Galaxy as, like, a space adventure film. You know, Rogue One is, like, a gritty war movie set in Star Wars. It's what Episode 1 through 3 wanted to be and wasn't.
I guess I'm on board. I don't know. I'm just feeling a little bit of fatigue already, and we don't even have one of these movies out yet. And so I kind of just want to like, I don't even know what to get excited for yet.
I don't think I can
appreciate-
feel fatigue until I see at least one of the movies. Like,
Yeah, I appreciate there is a lot coming, but to be fair, there's always been a lot of Star Wars stuff.
There has been.
It's only now there are a lot of Star Wars films.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, and if you're sick of it now, Rob, I hate to tell you, but Disney is very interested in making Star Wars like that big to all people. So there's only going to be more coming.
I know. I don't know. It's been a long time since I was excited about Star Wars, and maybe it'll all be good. Maybe we'll be okay. But when they announced that like Kingdom Hearts is going to have Star Wars in it, I'm not going to be excited. I'm going to be like, oh, okay, that's nice.
You don't
Well,
want a
I'm
party of
I'm physically
Sora, Wolverine, and Han Solo?
I think my body just can't handle that.
I want it.
I want it. Dude,
Yeah.
no. Kingdom Hearts 3 has the best world potential they've ever had. They can have Pixar now. They can have Star Wars. They can have Marvel.
I want Wally. I want the Wally world.
Wally.
Not
You know what?
Walmart.
In fact, here's what they do. Just make
Yes.
every world a Pixar world. That's fine with me.
Yeah.
Every world a Pixar world, then let me go kill the Death Star, then let me go fight the aliens from Avengers. We're good to go.
It could be
That
interesting.
sounds like a pretty dope game.
It does.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy. It might be okay. Maybe we're gonna get good Star Wars movies. I don't know. Like the already announcing a director for Episode 9 is like the Disney money making machine is in full effect right now, regardless of how the first movie has even been shown.
I mean, they're doing the same thing seems like they're doing the same thing that they're doing with Marvel, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
planning it out
Like Marvel.
meticulously.
Yeah, I mean, they've announced Marvel movies through 2020 or something. So
Yeah, and to be
Yeah.
fair, I'm also tired of those. I am
Yeah.
so tired of Marvel movies right now. I'm kind of like, okay, this was fun, but I'm kind of getting a little bored.
I liked Ant-Man.
I didn't
Yeah, I
see
just
it.
saw that.
I
I saw
haven't,
that
I haven't seen it yet either.
2 days ago. I actually liked it.
It was fun.
Yeah, it's
I think
it's
The worst part
okay
about
to-
Ant-Man was the contrived romance that didn't need to
Oh.
exist.
See, I actually thought the worst part was the villain because the bad guy was literal Hitler. Like he was too evil when he showed up the first time, and then he just kept getting more and more like inexplicably, horrifyingly just
Yeah.
Was
monstrous.
it Corey Stoll? It was Corey Stoll, wasn't it, from House of Cards and
Yeah, and like
Strain?
it wasn't the fault of his acting. It was just that like every line he had was like, "I'm clearly the bad guy.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
getting more and more evil."
Villainy personified.
He was
Yeah.
the Red Skull. He was a literal Nazi.
It was kind of ridiculous.
Oh. I don't know.
Anyway,
I'm just feeling a little overwhelmed. I think it's also like the problem of having so much media to consume right now. I am just like, ugh,
I feel
so
you.
many things
What?
to
There's
watch.
too much content?
There is
many
too
good
much
things.
content. I'm getting tired of content.
All right,
I'm
so
we are
Uh,
Caitlin and I are silently live streaming the Kingdom Hearts thing right now, and I'm desperately trying to say something about content that's relevant to our conversation, but I'm rapidly losing.
Okay. Well, Derek, do you have any other news for us, or should we let Steven go so we can watch Hearts?
My last news story was just that Legend of Legacy, which is coming out here on the 13th of October, is going to be getting a limited edition launch copy thing that includes a hardcover soundtrack. Sorry, hardcover art book, a hardcover soundtrack. I think they're hard anyway, and a 10-disc soundtrack sampler. It looks. I think one of the best things about that game is the artwork, specifically the like the actual Legacy artwork. I forget. Oh, I feel so bad now. What's the name of the artist who worked on Saga Frontier?
Oh no, I can't remember.
Yeah, I can.
Why does it look so much like Bravely Default? Is it the same artist?
No.
No, they just wanted to keep
Did you play it at E3? I don't really think it looks
I did.
like Bravely Default.
It is Tomomi Kobayashi. That's the name of the artist who worked on Saga Frontier. No, it doesn't look like Bravely Default. They're like super deformed character models, but they don't really look the same.
Maybe I just haven't looked at it enough. Do you think I'm gonna like that game?
I don't know if you will. It looks cool. It's very much just the next Saga Frontier. So you pick a character, you make a party of 3 of the 7 playable characters at the beginning, and you explore this island. And it's supposedly kind of freeform, like you just explore where you want, progress at your own pace, like make your own party with your own strategies and blah blah blah. Like there are no classes for the characters. It's just all you. It's free. Build them. What happened, Steven?
Big Hero 6 World.
Oh, I meant to watch that last night.
That movie was awesome.
Big Hero 6 was really good. It's worth watching.
That movie was adorable. Oh my
Jackson, I
god,
wanna watch
Baymax
it.
is going to be your party member.
It's like it's like Frozen is a movie about sisterhood and being a princess, and the next year they have a movie about brotherhood and being a hero, and it's awesome. It's a great movie.
Oh, Steve.
Oh my god.
No, that's great. That's great news. I love that movie.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all good.
No. I mean, this is entertaining. Just hearing your reactions as it's happening.
I would agree.
Even if it does date the time this podcast is being recorded a little bit.
That's okay. We'll get it out like tomorrow, right, Rob?
That's my hope. I've actually been doing a good job of getting these out, man. Don't come at me like that.
Just kidding.
I respect you, bro. I respect you.
Yeah, that's it for
one
Legend of
very
Legacy.
unrelated small piece of news: Runic Games, the people that make Torchlight, which is a 2 games that I adore, are announcing their new game at PAX in a week and a half.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but it's not going to be
What?
Torchlight related.
I'm excited for that.
There's gonna be a lot of RPGs at PAX, it seems.
Yeah,
Hey, I heard
you say that like it's a problem.
No, well, it's a problem that I have to cover all of them. And
Okay,
I'm gonna
That's
get
a problem.
exhausted.
All right, that's actually a fair problem. All right.
All right, I think we should probably let this podcast go so that Steven can go get really excited about his Kingdom Hearts and be all excited. So,
Yeah.
Every Keyblade will have a unique transformation.
oh no. All right, guys. Well, thank you everybody for listening to the show. Episode 100 is right around the corner, so everybody should get really excited for that. Everybody. Steven, Derek, Jesse, Mike, and Caitlin, thank you, everybody, and we will see you all later.
See ya.
Ah.
Bye.